Chapter 2114. Zhang Yan returned to Qinghuan Palace and sat cross-legged on the jade platform at the head of the hall. Because he had changed his strength path cultivation method, from this moment on, it was no longer the original, enlightened path comprehending divine contract. Perhaps it was time to change its name. As he thought of this, he realized that there were very few people who could reach the level of mortal transformation. Even if there were, it was due to their innate talent. Most of them were of different species, and there were almost no cultivators who could reach the level of mortal transformation. As for the level of true yang, from what he had sensed in the present world, no one had achieved it except for him. This path was very difficult. This was because strength path used more external medicine than chi path, but it was also because the cultivation method was naturally deficient, and there was no real path to progress. It was almost impossible for a cultivator to open up a path on their own. Among the billions of people in the present world, there was no lack of talented people who tried to do so, but most of them failed halfway and the rest gave up. There were almost no exceptions. Therefore, this path could only be pushed from top to bottom. Now that he had reached the highest realm, he had actually walked this path. He suddenly thought that the strength path body did not have mana ripples outside, and it might be because he was the only strength path cultivator in the void. If there were many people of the same path here, then perhaps it would be a different scene. It was still difficult for him to know whether this was true, but he could try to verify it. With a thought, he punched toward the void. In an instant, a powerful and vast mana ripple was blasted into the billions of times in the present world, and at the same time, the strength path was transmitted out. What was transmitted here was not the method itself, but the profound truth of the great path, so that the living beings in the present world could step on this path, and it would no longer be a dead end. As for the specific cultivation method, the living beings in the world could use various methods to derive and evolve it over the long years, and there was no need for him to specifically intervene. He was very much looking forward to someone succeeding in the future and calling him fellow Taoist. He looked back at Bu Shutian, who also had the inheritance of the Great Path, but for his own sect, there was no need to waste time and effort to derive it, and he could directly teach it to these younger disciples. However, his own method was not suitable for others, so after thinking for a moment, he derived another method. After thinking for a moment, he pointed with his finger, and a golden book appeared in front of him with 4 words on it. He waved his sleeve again, and the light scattered as they flew toward their disciples. He thought for a while more, then created 2 completely different strength path techniques, and sent them to the Golden Pavilion and the Duzhen Palace respectively. After doing this, he looked outside and saw the Jizhuang Doran's mana ripple continue to expand. He was clearly still searching for the essence of creation in order to find that existence's avatar. After reaching the 8th stage of strength path, although there was no way to solve this problem immediately, there was no doubt that he had many more methods to deal with it. If Jizhuang really did receive that existence's avatar into the world, then he would try to attack the Mirror Lake. In the past, this was impossible, but with the combination of qi and power, it was possible. At that time, he would attack from the outside, and if Ancestor Yao Han and the others rebelled, then there would be a chance to overturn Jizhuang Daoran. Although he did not want to see Ancestor Yao Han take the stage, it was clear that the existence would bring more danger. However, unless there was no other way, he did not want to take this step. At this time, he used his mana to search for the essence of creation. With the magic treasure left by the great underworld ancestor, his chances of finding it were higher than the other. Not long after, 2 more chaotic heavens would descend. If there was a land of fortune or a fragment of the essence of fortune, as long as it was not obtained by outsiders, the possibility of Jizhuang finding such a place would decrease imperceptibly. In the Mirror Lake, Taoist Jizhuang suddenly felt uneasy. With such a feeling, it was clear that something bad had happened to him. However, he was curled up here, so the outside threat was almost negligible. Could it be that the omen came from the people in the inner realm? He thought a bit and shook his head. He knew that the people in the inner realm all had their own thoughts. Which soul refinement cultivator would be willing to submit to someone else and be manipulated by someone else? If it was him, he wouldn't be willing either. That was why these people would want to replace him, But that was different from whether or not he could do it. As long as he didn't make any mistakes, no one could threaten his position as master. It wasn't that he hadn't considered the possibility of the mirror lake being attacked from both inside and outside. However, although he had put a lot of pressure on his peers, he hadn't broken through the bottom line, so the possibility of that happening was very small. However, this might not necessarily involve his own safety. Perhaps it would hinder his search for that divine avatar. After thinking about it for a long time, he became even more certain that Bu Xiutian had found a way to stop him. He had to find a way to resolve this matter. He couldn't help but ponder. Right now, it was not enough for him to search by himself. He needed someone to search with him. Although Bu Xiutian could do the same, he couldn't find all the fragments of the essence of creation or the land of creation. He just needed to make sure that they had a higher chance of finding it. Even if they only found one fragment, he could use the aura he obtained to try to lure that divine avatar over. However, if everyone worked together, it wouldn't be good for his control. After thinking for a long time, he asked someone to invite Xian Che and Song Xiao over. After the two arrived, he greeted them and invited them to take a seat. Then, he explained the reason. Today, I invited the two of you here to ask you to help me search for the essence of creation. It wasn't difficult for Xian Che and Song Xiao to guess this person's purpose. They were people who understood the current situation. Since it was a request from their master, they agreed on the spot. Soon, the magic power of the three spread out in the silence. Zhang Yan was not surprised when he sensed the change. He had already guessed that the other party would react in this way. However, the fact that the other party had only invited two people to help was enough to show that the other party did not trust the people under his wing. He waved his sleeve and sent out several talisman inscriptions. He asked Bu Xiutian and the other spirit refinement cultivators to release their magic power to search for the essence of creation. This forced Zhizhuang Daoren to use everyone. When everyone was involved, the chances of finding the target increased. However, at the same time, there were more variables. If someone found the land of creation, it was very likely that that person wouldn't tell others and would find a way to take it for himself. Of course, he also faced the same problem. However, Bu Xiutian didn't restrict anyone from coming and going. Even if someone went out and occupied a land of creation, he wouldn't be able to defend it by himself. In the end, he would most likely join forces with Bu Xiutian. Before the two worlds closed, Qi Yao and the other 5 demon masters joined forces and finally built a barrier. Qi Yao said, "This barrier can only temporarily stop the collision between the two worlds. It's hard to say how long it can last. If I don't want to be trapped here, I need to ask for help from the human Dao. They'll allow me to harvest treasures from the Kuan-Shi continent." Ling Cho looked into the reverse world and said, "Wait a little longer. We'll go after this treasure is born. That way, we'll have the confidence to negotiate with the human Dao." Everyone looked over and felt that this treasure was a little more powerful than just now. Moreover, its aura was overflowing. It was obvious that it wasn't far from entering the world. However, there was a problem in front of them now. When this treasure was formed, who would control it? After a moment of silence, Heng Jing was the first to speak. Demon Master Qi Yao has always been the person with the most profound cultivation among us. He's also fought against the human Dao for a long time. This treasure should be controlled by him. Ling Zhuan glanced to the side. When he saw that Ji Yu and Jian Tong were both silent, he said, "Although Demon Lord Qi Yao has fought against the people of humanity time and time again, I'm afraid that the final outcome might not be good. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been forced into the soul world." Heng Jing argued, "Fellow Taoist, you can take a look at what happened to the heartless Taoists and the Khanate demons. It's not luck that we're still safe here. It's all thanks to fellow Taoist Qi Yao's strategy." However, Ling Cho revealed a mocking expression and said, "That's not necessarily the case. The reason why the people of Dao let you go is indeed because fellow Taoist Qi Yao retreated in time. However, in my opinion, Demon Lord Qi Zhou is also involved." He looked at Qi Yao and the other two. If it wasn't for the human Dao's fear of Demon Master Qi Zhou, he might not have been so easy to talk to. Heng Jing was speechless. In fact, he thought so too. Ling Cho looked around at the crowd and continued, If Demon Master Qizhou is willing to come out and wield this treasure, there's no one more suitable than him. Unfortunately, this Demon Master is nowhere to be found. This treasure can't be left unattended. Only the 6 of us can wield it. Since Demon Master Qi Yao didn't gain the upper hand previously, why don't you give me a chance? Qi Yao had been silent all this while. However, when he heard this, he decided to fight for it. It wasn't that he was unwilling to part with the treasure, but the person who wielded it would undoubtedly be the person in charge. Ling Chou was too radical and had never fought against the human Dao. The matter couldn't be handed over to him, otherwise, everyone might be dragged into it. He said, Demon Master Qizhou's absence is a deterrent to the human Dao. Instead of growing stronger, we're actually weaker. I'd like to ask, how do you plan to fight against the human Dao? Ling Jun seemed to have a well-thought-out plan as he said, fellow Taoist Bai Wei and fellow Taoist Deng Zhang have always been fighting against the human Dao. I'm sure they know more about this matter than we do. I think there's no harm in seeking out the 2 of them and listening to their suggestions before making a decision. He knew that if he acted rashly, none of his fellow Taoists would trust him. Furthermore, he had no chance of winning. However, things would be different if he sought out Bai Wei and Deng Zhang. In terms of fighting against the human Dao, these 2 undoubtedly had more experience. In comparison, Qi Yao's original advantage was nothing. Just as they were discussing, there was a surge in the anti-heaven and earth. An indescribable object was swallowed by the precious fetus that was being nurtured. Then, with a flash of dim light, a treasure shed its hard shell and jumped out. Chapter 21:15. Seeing that the treasure had already been born, Ling Chou hurriedly used his transcendence energy to grab it. He wanted to take it first so that he could avoid any verbal arguments. However, when he used his transcendence energy, the treasure flashed and easily avoided him. Then, it plunged downwards, looking like it was about to escape into the depths of the anti-heaven and earth. The demon masters present could tell that the treasure had developed a consciousness and was unwilling to be controlled by them. This thing was born from the anti-heaven and earth. If it escaped, unless it was willing to show itself, it would be very difficult to find it again. Qi Yao used his divine will and said, "Everyone, try to take it." Now, whoever controlled this treasure would have the greatest right to speak. However, he believed that even if someone else obtained it, it would be better than Ling Chou. When he spoke, Jian Tong and Ji Kun were still hesitating, but Heng Jing and Lan Su did not hesitate and immediately tried to capture it. Ling Chou sneered and forcefully pushed away their transcendence energy. He grabbed the treasure again and succeeded this time. However, at this moment, Qi Yao's transcendence energy also arrived. When the 2 of them used their power, something unexpected happened. The treasure actually split into 2. One half remained in Ling Chou's hand, while the other was in Qi Yao's hand. Although Qi Yao was surprised, once the item was in his hands, he used a little of his magic power to extinguish the consciousness that was separated from the room. Ling Chou looked at the treasure and found that it was a jade tablet. Coincidentally, he was holding one half of it. He said, "Demon Master Qi Yao, splitting this treasure in 2 is not beneficial to us." Qi Yao put away the jade tablet in his hand and said calmly, "I think this is suitable." Ling Chou looked at him and knew that he could not take it back. He said, "That's fine. It's better in Demon Master Qi Yao's hands than in the hands of outsiders." He also wiped away the consciousness of the half-treasure in his hand and put it away. He said, "Since this treasure has been completed, we can go to the human Dao to ask for the precious materials. What do you think, fellow Taoist?" Qi Yao thought for a moment and nodded. Now is the time. Since the 2 of them agreed, the others did not object. After reaching an agreement, the 6 of them left and headed for Bu Su Tian. Inside the Yao Yin clan's Gu Shao mountainside hall, Wei Zihong was thinking about how to pass on his skills after reading the Strength Path secret manual. To be honest, this skill was most useful to him because there were many disciples in the Yao Yin clan, and most of them did not have high aptitudes. In the Yao Yin clan, even if the disciples of the clan did not have high achievements in cultivation, they could still take care of the secular affairs. If you worked hard, then after you died, the clan would bring you back. Even if you could not do it in this life, you could still do it in the next life. The reason why the Yaoyin clan was so prosperous now was because of this rule. As long as the entire clan still existed, there was a possibility for them to achieve Dao. But even if it couldn't be done on the Qi path, that didn't mean it couldn't be done on the strength path. As a mortal body cultivator, Wei Zihong knew very well that there had never been a cultivator who could reach his level in the strength path. Although there were some demons that could fight against mortal metamorphosis cultivators, they did not rely on their own cultivation. They all relied on their innate power. This was also the peak that this generation could reach. It was impossible to go any further. Even if they were given Yuan Jades, they would not know how to use them. However, this method could allow a weak body to cultivate all the way to the level of splitting the heavens and splitting the earth. He couldn't help but sigh. Other than the unfathomable Dharma path, although the Qi and strength paths were often mentioned in the same breath, in reality, the first half of the strength path cultivation could still compete with the Qi path. At the later half, it was firmly suppressed by the Qi path, and there was no possibility of competing. But now, with this method, the situation of the two Dharma paths existing side by side might really be realized. He glanced at the secret book in his hand. Just now, the Divine Will had communicated with him, and he knew that the other members of the clan had also received the same thing. Although his teacher only gave them this item, and did not specifically say how to do it, among them, no one could cultivate the strength path. Therefore, the meaning behind this was clearly for them to widely spread this method among the younger generation. He was very proactive about this, and immediately ordered people to find 2 elders of the clan, and asked which disciples had a firm heart to pursue Tao, but were hindered by their aptitude and did not make any progress. Those outstanding disciples were not in the list of choices. This opportunity was mainly given to those disciples who originally had no talent in the Qi path. If they could have some achievements in the strength path, it would also be the clan's fortune. The 2 elders discussed for a while, then handed over the name list, and said that there might be omissions in it, and that it would be added later. Wei Zihong took a quick look, and showed the first half of the golden book to the 2 elders. He then said, if these disciples are willing, they can switch to this method in the future. After reading the first half of the method, one of the elders was greatly astonished, and said, this strength path method, if there is enough external medicine, can push a suitable disciple into the 3rd rank in about 20 to 30 years, which is equivalent to a core formation cultivator. If this method is spread, it can greatly increase the abilities of the clan's younger generation disciples. The other elder also nodded. In the past, the strength path method was very rough, and was not as particular as the Qi path method, where each major realm was divided into another small realm. However, this method had a path that was similar to the Qi path, where each rank was divided into 3 layers, and one could cultivate step by step, and there would not be too much deviation. He asked tentatively, may I know where the method of sect master came from? Wei Zihong said, this was taught by my master. So it's a method taught by Yuan Zun, no wonder. The 2 elders showed expressions of reverence. At this time, the elder who first spoke hesitated, and asked tentatively, sect master, if those disciples of the different race in the clan ask about it. Wei Zihong said straightforwardly, this method is currently only suitable for disciples of the human race. The disciples of the different race are temporarily not in the consideration. Under normal circumstances, he would treat all disciples of the different race equally, but first of all, this generation did not pose a threat to the human race. But when it came to a method that could change the balance of power between the 2 sides, he would definitely not let it go. Especially when his master was the palace master of the Duzhen Hall of Qinsong School, and Qinsong School never accepted disciples of the different race, so he could only exclude them. Inside the golden pavilion of the floating heavenly palace, Shen Baishuang carefully read through the scroll of the strength path method in his hands, and after reading it, he was also very emotional. This secret record not only contained the method itself, but there were also many annotations, clearly explaining the principles of cultivation. For a cultivator of his level, even if he did not cultivate the strength path, he would still be able to benefit a lot from it. It even mentioned that if a strength path cultivator obtained the primordial jade, he could also use it to reach the true yang level, and if he went further, he could faintly see a higher path. He knew how attractive this was to cultivators. Some of the more talented cultivators might even give up their previous cultivation path and switch to this Dao when they saw this cultivation method. After careful consideration, he separated the annotations from the method, and then came to the secret pavilion that only the pavilion master and the sect master could enter. There was a shrine here, divided into a total of 3 layers. The top layer placed the fundamental method of the Qinsong school, the 5 Gong and 3 scriptures, and they were all written by the Tai Ming patriarch. The second layer, on the other hand, contained the cultivation methods, secret techniques, and their own insights left by the previous sect masters, the Duzhen Hall and the Tian Kong Hall master. Further down, there were the more superior Dao techniques deduced by the previous elders of the sect. He solemnly placed this strength path method on the second layer, and it was placed at the very front. As for the annotations, he placed it in another secret shrine by itself, and locked it with layers of restrictions. Then, he wrote a line of words on the side. The annotations here are not for those who have just entered the grotto heaven. Zhizhuang Daoren saw several waves of Fa Li coming out from Bushutian, and his expression changed slightly. Obviously, everyone here had acted together to compete with him for the creation essence. He had also thought of encouraging everyone to act, but he did not dare to do so. It was fine to monitor 2 people, but even if someone found a place of fortune, they would have to be there before they could occupy it. As the master, he could suppress them as long as he discovered a clue. However, if he allowed everyone in the Mirror Lake to act like this, he would not be able to take care of it at all. So, he simply endured. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, he could achieve this, even if it took a long time. Zhang Yan saw that after he made his counterattack, there was no new response from the Mirror Lake, and the situation was still the same. This was undoubtedly because Ji Zhuang did not want to summon more people. However, in a sense, this method could be considered to be very correct. Since I can't suppress you, then I might as well not fight with you. In any case, the final result may not be much different. At most, it would only prolong the time of the battle. This was nothing to a spirit refinement cultivator. He thought about it for a while. What came next would depend on fate. He only needed to think about how to deal with it when it came to that step. As he thought about it, he felt something. He looked up and saw a talisman floating outside Bushutian. He took it and looked at it. It was sent by ancestor Yao Han. It said that if Zhang Yan wanted to stop Zhizhuang Daoren, he had to act now. It said that as long as Zhang Yan led the people to attack the Mirror Lake, he would find a way to give Zhizhuang Daoren enough pressure. Then, he would be able to incite the people in the Mirror Lake to work together and overthrow him. He thought about it and felt that ancestor Yao Han's words could not be trusted. That person just wanted to use this opportunity to make him take the lead and then reap the benefits. If the situation was not right, he would be the first to retreat. The key was that he did not have the confidence to take down the Mirror Lake. Otherwise, he would not have minded doing this. He only needed to stop ancestor Yao Han from taking the master's position. At this moment, he glanced at a certain direction. Not long after, another chaos sky would descend. This was the chaos sky that the Jade Heaven sect ascended to. He wondered if he could find any clues about the Yao Han ancestor here. If he could determine his true intentions, it would be convenient for him to descend and execute his plan. Chapter 21:16. Qi Yao, Ling Chou, and the others arrived outside Busa Heaven in a flash. According to the rules, no one was allowed to enter without an invitation. However, the situation was special this time, so the people of Human Dao quickly let them in. Bai Wei and Deng Zhang watched the 6 of them head to the Human Dao domain, but they only looked on coldly from the sidelines. They had no intention of contacting them. There were only 2 of them now. Even if they took the initiative to befriend them, they would only be relegated to a lower position, so it wasn't a good idea to seek them out now. Once this person had suffered a loss at the hands of Human Dao, he would definitely come back for them. Then, it would be more convenient for them to talk. After the 6 demon masters entered the domain, an aura came to guide them. They followed it, and soon, a great hall appeared in front of them. Qiao looked over and saw that the 4 people of Human Dao Yuanzun were all standing in front of the hall to welcome them, but Zhang Yan wasn't among them. He couldn't help but feel a little relieved, but he frowned when he saw Taoist Juan Quebec. He hadn't seen this person before, so he guessed that it might be Yuan Zun who had recently broken through after obtaining the profound stone. After greeting each other, both parties sat down according to the host and guest. Qi Yao glanced at Ling Cho and saw that the latter had no intention of speaking, so he spoke first. We're here today because Demon Lord Qizhou has gone to search the upper realm. He's not here, so there's no one to guard the barrier. We need to replenish it with external items, but we don't have enough treasures right now. This matter doesn't just concern us, but also the myriad realms, so we've come here to discuss it. Danny said, "This is indeed a matter between our two sections. We can provide the treasures, but as for how much you need, just let us know and we'll have people send it over in a moment." At this moment, Ling Jiu suddenly said, "Wait a moment. I have something to say. The Heaven's Gate is affected by the collision between the heavens and the earth of the two worlds, so it's inevitable that it needs to be repaired during the construction. It would be too troublesome for us to discuss these precious materials with you every time." Michihito Ichito looked over coldly. "What do you mean, fellow Taoist?" Ling Chuan said, "I wonder if you can allow us to go in and search for it ourselves." "Of course, fellow Taoists, you can rest assured. We can swear that we will not search for anything unrelated to this." Qi Yao stood to the side and didn't interrupt. Although he had some conflicts with Ling Cho in the face of the Tao, they were one and the same. At this moment he could let Ling Cho test him. Even if he failed, it wouldn't be his prestige that would be damaged. Everyone present knew that Yuan Zun knew that these extraterrestrial demons said that they would only take these precious materials to build the gate of heaven and earth, but they might not do so. Most likely, they would choose a part of them to build a Taoist treasure. In the past, the main reason why the Tao cultivators were able to suppress these demons was because every single one of them possessed a Tao artifact. If they possessed a Tao artifact as well, the gap between them would undoubtedly shrink significantly. Fu Qingming said indifferently, "None of you will enter Bu Su Tian. This is a previous agreement. If you feel that it's inappropriate, you can make an appointment with us to fight again. Who knows, you might be able to officially enter Bu Su Tian at that time. Then, you won't have to worry about this anymore." Ling Chuan said, "Everyone, you must be joking. We don't have such intentions. Since there are rules, then we naturally won't enter. Why don't our disciples head to the Kunsher continent to collect it for us?" Back then, because the Tao cultivators needed this generation to stir up karma, they actually turned a blind eye to their disciples entering the world. It could even be said that they let them do as they pleased. Now that Ling Chuan had made this clear, it was clear that he wanted an honorable identity. Dan Yi conversed with everyone's divine wills for a while before he said, "There are many sects on the Kunsher continent now, and there are also demons and monsters of the different races. Fellow Taoists, if your disciples enter here, please be careful. If you make a mistake, no one will protect you." Ling Chuan naturally understood that he was telling them to know when to advance and when to retreat. Otherwise, even if they collected the materials, they might not be able to bring them out. However, he was already very satisfied with this. At least nominally, the Tao cultivators would no longer stop his disciples from entering the Kunsher continent. The key was that he had no suitable disciples now. In that case, the disciples that he sent out would definitely be the disciples of Qi Yao, Heng Jing, and Miao Su. If they could not bring back the materials, it would not be his fault. In the Hengxiao heavens, on the brilliant platform, the cloud screen glowed brightly, and the steps were smooth like jade. The sky was cold and the stars were warm. 5 exalted true immortals sat there. Each of them had a magnificent aura, and behind them was a brilliant galaxy. The cultivators in this Hengxiao heavens all ascended from the lower realms, and the origin of all the sects could be traced back to the Yao Han patriarch. Because all the cultivators were from the same lineage, those who came here all merged into a large sect and called it the Hengxiao heavens. It could be said to be prosperous and glorious. After the Yao Han patriarch opened up the realm, he left many realm gates here. Thus, the Hengxiao sect used these gates to expand outwards. Because other than the cultivators of this realm, outsiders were not allowed to enter this realm, so they did not have any scruples in the beginning. Even some powerful enemies dared to go out and provoke them. With the powerful strength of the sect, it was indeed smooth sailing in the beginning. It was only when they encountered an extremely difficult force that they were stopped. This sect, called the Herculean Divine Sect, was passed down by some powerful cultivator, but their divine abilities and cultivation methods were extremely powerful. From the moment they first met until now, they had fought against them for more than 5,000 years. At the beginning of the battle, the Hengxiao sect was at a disadvantage. It was only because there were many lower realms behind them that they had enough strength. In addition, there was more than one realm gate, so they could obtain benefits from other places. Thus, they were able to grit their teeth and hold on. Most importantly, although the Herculean Divine Sect could defeat them every time and even heavily injure them several times, they could not do anything to them because it was difficult for them to attack the Hengxiao heavens. Over the years, due to the stability of the Hengxiao heavens, their strength grew stronger as they fought. In contrast, the Herculean Divine Sect was declining. Not long ago, the Hengxiao sect finally found an opportunity. Under the leadership of the sect master, they mobilized almost all the middle and upper echelons of the sect. With the help of a spy from the Herculean Divine Sect, after a difficult battle, they finally trapped the sect master in a deserted world. After this battle, not only did the Herculean Divine Sect lose their sect master, no one was able to use their sect treasure anymore. The Hengxiao sect took advantage of the situation to attack the Herculean Divine Sect. A day ago, another message arrived, saying that they had already intercepted the remnants of the sect, and even the sect treasure had fallen into their hands. After this news was confirmed, everyone in the sect, from top to bottom, was wild with joy. All the disciples in the sect were celebrating without restraint. Taoist Yi Hao, who was sitting on the left, looked at the cheering scene below and stroked his beard. After more than 5,000 years, we finally defeated this old opponent. The others were also sighing. However, they were not surprised by this result. Because of the existence of the Realm Gate, they knew when they clashed with the Herculean Divine Sect. They knew that they would defeat their opponent sooner or later. It was just a matter of time. The person sitting opposite Taoist Yi Hao was called Zhou Isa. He was a cultivator from the Yuxiao school. After he severed his mortal body, he ascended from the 9 continents to this place. He also sighed. Thinking about how powerful the Herculean Divine Sect's Taoist Xinyang was, we couldn't do anything to him even if we attacked him together. We could only retreat. His close disciple standing behind him was unconvinced. That was only because he relied on the sect treasure. If he didn't have it, how could he be a match for all of you? Zhou Isa smiled and said, being able to defeat others with a Dharma treasure is also one's own ability. If we were to pay attention to these things, we would be the ones who attacked him together. That would be unethical. His words were not taboo. The disciple immediately lowered his head and didn't dare to reply. Zhou Isa glanced to the side. The 2 people sitting there were his fellow disciples, Zhou Yinjing and Wu Tai. When they saw his gaze, they nodded at him. Zhou Yinjing cupped his hands and said, Taoist Hao Yi, the destruction of the remnants of the Herculean Divine Sect is a foregone conclusion. Taoist Hao Yi, we can deal with the matters of the lower realm. Taoist Yi Hao was surprised. Matters of the lower realm? Zhou Yinjing said, for the past thousands of years, no one from the Yuxiao school has ascended. Perhaps something has changed in the 9 continents, so we want to find out. Taoist Yi Hao frowned. The 9 continents where the Yuxiao school was located was also a lower realm. However, they had conquered many realms over the years. Even if someone ascended, their strength would not increase much. Instead, their authority might be divided due to the difference in status. Therefore, he wasn't too keen on this. However, the Zhou clan of Yuxiao was a descendant of the ancestral master's clone. Since this matter was brought up in the hall, he couldn't reject it directly. He said, but there is no realm gate behind you. How can you confirm this? Wu Yutai said, not long ago, we calculated that there will be signs of a connection between the 2 realms in the next few days. We can use the jade talisman left by the ancestral master to guide the gate. When the gate opens, we can send an artifact over to take a look. Then, we'll know what's going on. At this time, Taoist Hao suddenly realized that all the cultivators who had ascended from the 9 continents were present. Because of the battle with Taoist divine Yang, the sect leader was still recuperating in seclusion, while the remaining supremes were still attacking the remnants of the divine hegemony sect and had yet to return. According to the rules of the sect, even if he and another fellow Taoist objected, it would be useless. He suddenly realized why the people of Yuxiao had given up the opportunity to wipe out the remnants of the Herculean divine sect. It turned out that they were waiting for him here. He thought for a moment and said, "Since the 3 of you have decided on this, let's try and see." Zhou Isa and the other 2 got his permission. They stood up and bowed, then left the place together. Since the Jade Talisman could only guide the gate to the lower realm in these 2 days, they had to hurry up. After returning to the palace, Zhou Isa said solemnly, "I'll cast the talisman later. My 2 Taoist friends, please watch the gate for me. We've missed the previous opportunity, so we can't make any mistakes this time." Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Yutai bowed and left. Zhou Mingsa turned around and took out a jade talisman. But for some reason, a trace of uneasiness welled up in the depths of his heart. He couldn't help but ponder, is there something wrong? Then he shook his head. With the strength of the Yuxiao school and the sect's treasure, what could have happened in these thousands of years? Even if the Shaoqing and Qinsong sects joined forces to attack, there was nothing to fear. So, he calmed his mind and cast the jade talisman above the muddy sky. Chapter 21:17. The jade talisman flew up and blended into heaven and earth. Although it could no longer be seen, Zhou Isa knew that the talisman had pulled the realm gate. He calmed himself down and waited for the time to come. The gate of heaven and earth could be opened, and then he could figure out the situation in the 9 continents. He slowly walked out of the hall and saw Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Yutai looking at him. He said, "The jade talisman has been sacrificed, and now we only need to wait for the gate of heaven and earth to open." After a moment of silence, he suddenly asked, "What do you think is the reason for the lower realm?" Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Yutai looked at each other. The 3 of them had discussed this matter several times and had some speculations, but they didn't know why Zhou Isa brought it up again. Zhou Yinzheng said, "We used to say that the spiritual opportunity in the 9 continents is running low. I'm afraid it's because of this that no one can ascend." Wu Yutai also said, "That's the only reason. It's hard for enemies to enter the 9 continents. Other than the spiritual opportunity, I really can't think of any other reason." After they came to the muddy heaven, they found out that Taoists of the heavenly abode could ascend to other realms. However, the barrier of the 9 continents was too thick. Except for Taoists of mortal slough, it was hard for outsiders to enter. Moreover, as the spiritual opportunity dissipated, it was no longer attractive to outsiders. Zhou Isa nodded. Just now, the feeling of uneasiness lingered in his heart and was difficult to get rid of. He couldn't help but think, I hope there are no twists and turns today. They didn't want to open the realm gate for the sects in the lower realm, nor did they want to find out the truth of why no one had ascended for thousands of years. The reason why they were so concerned about the 9 continents was that they wanted to see if they could find the whereabouts of Zhou Huanyuan jade. They all agreed that the ancestral master would not have left this jade talisman behind for no reason. From what they had come into contact with in the other sects of the same lineage, they had never left such an item in their sections. Even their sect-guarding treasures did not exist. However, the patriarch valued the inheritance of the 9 continents so much. There must be a special reason here, so they suspected that they might be able to find clues about the primordial jade outside the 9 continents. The spiritual opportunity in the land of chaos was endless, but the Hengshao sect was still expanding everywhere, all for the sake of finding Zhou Huanyuan jade. However, the upper echelons of Hengshao sect were a combination of cultivators from several different sects, so they shared the same interests externally, but internally, that was not the case. Zhou Kei's and the other 2 were not willing to share their benefits with others. Besides, if this thing was really in the 9-continent lower realms, then it should belong to them. Actually, they also had a chance to open the door the last time. However, at that time, they were in the midst of an intense battle with the Shenhe faction. Hence, the suggestion that he made was rejected by all the cultivators. Because if they were too eager to open the door, it would arouse the suspicion of others. Hence, they did not continue to insist on it. However, this time, they could not miss it. Otherwise, they did not know how long they would have to wait for the next time. Taoist Yi Hao returned to his temporary imperial residence. The actions of Zhou Kei's and the other two not long ago had diluted the joy he felt when he learned that the divine hermit sect had been destroyed. At this point, a servant came to report, Lord Bingzhang requests an audience. Taoist Yi Hao said, invite him in. After a while, Taoist Bingzhang arrived at the inner room. He was very familiar with Yi Hao, so after bowing to him and taking a seat, he said directly, what do you think of the matter just now? Taoist Yi Hao stroked his beard for a moment and said, I did not see anything. Did you see anything? Taoist Bingzhang's eyes flickered. He moved closer and said, since the three of them are so concerned about this matter, they might have some inside information that they do not want me to know. Taoist Yi Hao shook his head and said, no matter what the reason is, this is a good opportunity. Not to mention that the sect master is not here, the other fellow Taoists are also outside. They are only looking for fellow Taoists from the original sect, and it does not violate the sect's rules. Why should I say anything to stop them? Taoist Bingzhang looked at him meaningfully and said, do you really think that they are looking for fellow Taoists from the original sect? I think that they might have something that they must obtain in the lower realm, which is why they are so concerned. Taoist Yi Hao obviously knew what he was referring to, so he said, if it is as you think, what should we do? Taoist Bingzhang said, although the sect master is in seclusion, if it is related to that thing, I believe that he will not sit still. Taoist Yi Hao said, isn't it inappropriate to disturb the sect master with something that has not been confirmed? Taoist Bingzhang took on the responsibility and said, fellow Taoist only needs to sit on the side and watch. If anything goes wrong, I will take full responsibility for this matter. He was not afraid of making a mistake. Now that the Hengshao sect had no powerful enemies outside, even if things did not go as he thought and disturbed the sect master's rest, he would at most be reprimanded, and the sect master would not do anything to him. However, if things went according to his plan, then it would be a great merit. Seeing that Taoist Yi Hao did not say anything else, it was obvious that he had acquiesced, so he bowed and excitedly left. In the Bu Su Heaven Clear Huan Palace, while Zhang Yan was sitting in silence, a feeling arose in his heart. He knew that the muddy sky was approaching, so he probed it with his Weili. The last two times, when the muddy sky was close to the Bu Su Heaven, he did not wait for it to truly land before he actively used his Fa Li to guide it and open the door. However, this time he felt a trace of resistance from it. This kind of energy was both familiar and strange, and it seemed to come from the same source as the Yao Han ancestor. This was undoubtedly the work of the Yao Han ancestor, and it was very likely that it was not the Yao Han ancestor in front of him, so it was only when it was complete. He pondered for a moment. If he wanted to force his way in, it would not be difficult, but it was hard to guarantee that the Weili would destroy the muddy sky the moment it sensed an external force invading, thus cutting off the connection behind it. However, it was not difficult for him to see that in a few more years, even if he did not interfere, a door would be opened, and he could send his disciples to investigate. Thinking of this, he summoned, and a spirit light screen rose in the hall. After a while, Wan Guang, Xiu Guang, Yi Guang, Qing Guang, and Ding Guang, 6 disciples holding swords walked into the hall and bowed. Disciple greets patriarch. These 6 people were taken in when he achieved spirit refinement. Although they weren't considered disciples, they were still his subordinates. They were all raised by his own power, and each of them could be considered as a cultivator in the 3rd level of the mortal transformation realm. Because they didn't cultivate properly, they couldn't achieve Grand Tao, and it was impossible for their cultivation to progress. Therefore, after opening the world stabilization realm, he left them here. However, it did not mean that their cultivation could not progress. As a disciple of the Supreme Sect, even if they did not enter Enlightenment realm, they could still use their cultivation to continuously increase their mana. It was just that they would never be able to transcend. Zhang Yan changed his mind, and a talisman floated down from above. It stopped in front of the 6 people and said, "Take this talisman and follow the chi on it. When you find a door between 2 worlds, follow the talisman's guidance, and you will know what to do." Wan Guang and the others took the talisman, bowed, and accepted the order. They bowed again and retreated out of the hall. Then, they each raised their swords and followed the talisman's guidance to an altar, waiting for the time to come. Zhou Isa and the other 2 silently waited in the palace. In order to prevent Yi Hao and the others from disturbing them, they even set up a restriction formation outside. 10 years passed just like that. On this day, Zhou Isa felt the jade talisman move slightly. Then, a feeling entered his mind, and he immediately woke up from his meditation. He said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoists, the door is about to open." Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Tai looked at the stage and saw a flash of light. After a few breaths, a door opened horizontally like a bolt of lightning. The 2 of them immediately channeled their magic power into it, trying to hold the door open. Zhou Mingse was very cautious. He didn't directly pass through, but directly sent the instrument that he had prepared in advance. He said, "We will know the reason in a moment." However, after a while, he frowned. He could sense that the compass had not been able to return to the 9 continents. Instead, it had fallen into the void origin sea, and it was impossible for the compass to find the 9 continents. Zhou Yinzheng also saw the situation and suggested, "Why don't we send one of our clones over?" Zhou Isa did not say anything. At this moment, the feeling of uneasiness in his heart grew stronger and stronger. He said in a deep voice, "Close the door." Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Tai were startled, but they both believed in his judgment. So, they withdrew their mana and let the door close. Zhou Shuise realized that the feeling in his heart did not subside just because of this. Just as he was thinking about the reason, he suddenly felt the restrictive array outside the palace opening layer by layer, and then the palace door suddenly opened. He saw 3 Taoists walking in. The face of the person at the front was not very clear, it was condensed from a piece of starlight, it was clearly a clone, and on his left and right were Yi Hao and Bing Zhang. Zhou Isa and the other 2's expressions changed. They quickly stood up and bowed. "Since Sect Master is coming, why don't you send someone to inform us so that we can go out and greet you?" The Sect Master said with his hands behind his back. "Just now, I felt that the realm gate was opened. I was worried that something might happen to the 3 Taoists, so I came in first. Now that I see that the 3 Taoists are safe, I can be at ease." Zhou Isa said, "That was just us looking for our fellow Taoists from the lower realm." The Sect Master said, "Did you find it?" Zhou Isa shook his head, "Not yet. Maybe our cultivation was not enough. The instrument we sent was only wandering in the primal sea of void. We could not find the other side." The Sect Master said, "How can this be? Our fellow Taoists from the lower realm are of the same origin. Why don't you open the realm gate and let me help you find it?" Zhou Isa wanted to refuse, but he knew that the Sect Master was just suspicious. If he did not comply, it would be inappropriate. Anyway, it was only the primal sea of void. Even the Sect Master could not find anything. So, he nodded to Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Tai. Seeing that he agreed, the 2 of them circulated their techniques again. The door slowly opened again. But at this moment, the Sect Master seemed to feel something. His expression changed and he shouted, "Close!" Just as he was speaking, the door seemed to open uncontrollably, and a few Taoists with swords on their backs slowly walked out. Chapter 21:18. Wan Guang and the other 5 had sharp auras and profound magic power. They didn't look like easy opponents. The Hengshao sect's people immediately felt like they were facing a great enemy. Sect Master Hengzhao's face darkened. Just now, not long after the door was opened, he sensed several forces seeping in from the outside. His first thought was that someone from Zhou Yu's lineage had ascended again. But then he realized that the aura didn't belong to Yu Xiao's lineage. Only then did he know that something was wrong. But he didn't expect that it was already too late to close the door. It wasn't difficult for him to see that the newcomers were abnormally strong. Ever since the founding master established this realm, no outsider had ever entered this realm. He didn't expect that a precedent would be set today. He used his divine will and transmitted, "Fellow Taoist Zhou, can you close the door?" Zhou Yu said, "This door isn't something we can open. It's fixed by the jade talisman given by the founding master. But now it's being disturbed by another strange force. I can no longer sense the jade talisman's location. It'll take some time to find him." Sect Master Heng Shao asked, "How long?" Zhou Yu said, "It's hard to say. I can only do my best." When Sect Master Heng Shao heard this, he knew that this matter was very troublesome. He made a prompt decision and immediately used his divine will to ask his fellow sect members who were cleaning up the mess outside to bring back the divine hermit sect's treasure. They didn't need to care about anything else. At the same time, he said, "These people are probably from the same realm as you. You guys try to stabilize them here. I'll order my avatar to set up a formation outside to prevent any unforeseen events." Zhou Yu acknowledged and took a step forward. He bowed and said, "Where did you come from?" Wan Guang returned the greeting and said, "I'm Wan Guang. The people standing behind me are all from the same sect. We came from Li Wang Mountain. Today, we are here under the orders of our ancestor to investigate the details of this world." Zhou Yu had never heard of the name Forgotten Desert Mountain, but there were countless worlds in the universe that he had never heard of. He didn't think too much about it and said in a serious tone, "This is the territory of my Heng Shao sect. Isn't it inappropriate for you all to come without notice?" Foppish Light said indifferently, "I'm afraid everyone is mistaken. This chaotic sky is merely a host in Busu Great Heaven. It's just that the two worlds were separated in the past and didn't interact with each other. Now that the two worlds are close to each other and the door has been opened, we naturally have to investigate clearly." The Heng Shao sect master didn't believe these words at all. Even if they were speaking the truth, he couldn't admit it. However, the Heng Shao sect had been fighting outside for thousands of years and knew that there was no such thing as reason in this world. Only strength could decide everything. It was just that Wan Guang and the others had severed their past and future. Putting aside their battle prowess, they were on the same level as the Heng Shao sect master. Not to mention the fact that there was an ancestral master behind him. Judging from the surface, it was obvious that the sect behind him was stronger than them. Therefore, this was an unprecedented enemy, but it was still salvageable. As long as they could find a way to expel or suppress these 6 people, then find a way to destroy the door, they would be able to solve this crisis. Zhou Yu said, "Let's not talk about your identities for now. What do you want to know by coming here?" Wan Guang still had a calm expression. "We want to know how many heaven and earth doors you have and where they lead to." Yi Guang smiled. "Don't worry, we aren't here to invade your territory. Once we get to the bottom of this, we will naturally leave." Everyone was startled. If the other party asked about how many cultivators they had and how strong they were, they would have to think twice. However, they didn't know the meaning behind asking about the heaven and earth doors. Could it be that they were only here for this? Or were they just trying to calm them down for now? Sect Master Heng Shao said, "I am the sect master of this place. Though the heaven and earth doors are related to the foundation of this place, the number of heaven and earth doors is not a secret. There are about 10 or so heaven and earth doors." Wan Guang slowly said, "We don't know if what you say is true or false. We need to see it for ourselves before we can go back and give an explanation." Sect Master Heng Shao didn't refuse, he still needed to stall for time, so he said, "Though I am the sect master, I cannot make a decision on this matter. Can you allow me to discuss this with my fellow Taoist?" Wan Guang didn't show any signs of objection. He said, "You can go discuss it, we can wait here. I just hope you won't make us wait for too long." Sect Master Heng Shao cupped his hands and led everyone out of the hall. However, he was afraid that Wan Guang and the others would wander around after they lost their guard, so he didn't go too far. He retreated to a side hall nearby. Sect Master Heng Shao asked, "What does fellow Taoist Zhou think?" Zhou Kais bowed to Sect Master Heng Shao and said, "I would like to apologize to Sect Master. In the past, before the heaven and earth doors were opened, no outsiders came to this place. If I didn't have the intention to search for my fellow sect members in the lower realm, today's matter wouldn't have happened." Sect Master Heng Shao waved his hand and said, "Fellow Taoists are not at fault in this matter. If I didn't insist on opening the heaven and earth doors, I wouldn't have provoked these people. This matter ends here. The current situation is urgent, so everyone should first discuss how to eliminate these 6 people. Sect Master Heng Xiao had been fighting outside for a long time. In his mind, he had never thought of using peaceful methods to solve the problem. In his opinion, the other party most likely didn't have good intentions and didn't believe that it was as simple as just checking the heaven and earth doors. If it was them in an unfamiliar territory, they wouldn't choose to act immediately without investigating the situation. Zhou Kais was afraid that the sect would push the blame on them. Now that he had accepted the matter, he was relieved. He thought for a moment and said, "Just now, this junior doesn't have the ability to open the heaven and earth doors on his own. Otherwise, he would have ascended long ago. Closing the heaven and earth doors can indeed solve this matter." Sect Master Heng Xiao said, "Then I will have to ask fellow Taoists to act quickly." Zhou Kais said, "This junior couldn't have known that the heaven and earth doors would open in advance. This time, he probably stumbled into it by accident." Taoist Hao Yi's heart moved and he immediately said, "So this junior just now, he brought up the patriarch behind him. Could this be just a bluff? Perhaps there are only the 6 of them in the sect." Zhou Kais said, "This is only a possibility. But if this junior has another great expert behind him, then he will definitely try to contact the sect. So if we want to act, we need to act as soon as possible. There's no need to wait until the heaven and earth doors are closed." Bing Zhang's eyes turned and he said, "Sect Master, I think, since they want to check the heaven and earth doors, we might as well let them go." Sect Master Heng Xiao said, "What do you have in mind?" Bing Zhang glanced at Zhou Kais and said, "According to fellow Zhou, this junior must be worried about the heaven and earth doors, so even if he goes to check, he will leave some people behind to look after this place. This way we can split them up and deal with them separately." Zhou Yinjing said, "This junior is powerful, so we need to work together to have a chance of winning. There are restrictions in the hall, and without the sect master's talisman, it will be difficult for outsiders to enter or leave. If things go smoothly, we can first kill the few people who went to check the heaven and earth doors, then we can deal with the people in the hall." Sect Master Heng Xiao nodded and said, "Let's do that." They had been fighting with the Shenhe clan for more than 5,000 years. Usually, the slightest mistake would result in a huge defeat. Hence, they would not delay when they encountered a problem. Now, they had settled the matter with just a few words. At this moment, a disciple came to report, "Sect Master, Ban Shangzhen and Wei Shangzhen have returned to the sect and are now waiting outside the main hall." Sect Master Heng Zhao's spirit was lifted. He said, "Has the Shenhe sect's treasure been brought back?" The disciple replied, "The 2 Shangzhen said that they have brought it back." Sect Master Heng Xiao nodded and immediately walked out. As he walked, he said, "Tell them to bring it to me immediately." He then said to the few people here, "I'll have to trouble you to explain the matter clearly to the 2 fellow Taoists." Everyone cupped their hands and bowed. Sect Master Heng Xiao used his technique and his figure flashed, turning into a light and flying away. A day later, Zhou Yinjing came to the palace and said, "Sect Master and the elders have agreed for you to go and investigate. Do you want to go together or just send a few?" Xiuguang said, "Yi Guang, you and the 2 junior martial brothers will guard the heaven and earth doors here." He then said to Xiuguang and Guang, "Junior martial brothers, follow me." Zhou Yinjing saw that they had chosen to act separately. Although he did not show it on the surface, he was secretly relieved. He took a step to the side and said, "Fellow Taoists, follow me." Xiuguang and the other 2 followed him out of the palace and flew into the sky behind him. At this moment, Zhou Yinjing casually asked, "Have you heard of the 9 continents?" Xiuguang replied indifferently, "No." They were not cultivators of the 9 continents. Ever since they entered Dao, they had always been cultivating in Forgotten Li Mountain. It could be said that they were different people from the cultivators of the 9 continents, so they had never heard of this name. At this moment, Yi Guang seemed to feel something and looked towards the palace that just now came out from. He smiled playfully and transmitted his divine will to Xiuguang, "Senior martial brother, I'm afraid these people have ulterior motives." Xiuguang said indifferently, "Let them do what they want." We will reason with them first. If it doesn't work, then we will consider other things. They came here to see if there was a boundary like the one Zhang Yan mentioned, not to invade this world. They were not fond of fighting. If they could resolve it with words, then it would be best. However, if the other party was unwilling to cooperate, then they could not blame them for using other methods. Not long after, Xiuguang and the others saw an arched rainbow that connected the heavens and the earth. It was very spectacular. Zhou Yinzheng said, "That is where the largest realm gate is." Sect Master said that if you want to go and check it out, you can. After passing through this realm gate, without their permission, they would not be able to come back. They believed that if they could directly send these people away, they would not have to do it themselves. Yiguang said, "No need, we just need to take a look." All they had to do was take a stroll in front of the realm gate, and the jade talismans on them would allow them to understand the situation on the other side. Once all the realm gates had been thoroughly investigated, they would be able to return. A moment later, the four of them landed in front of the realm gate. Just now, they had only taken a few steps when Zhou Yinzheng suddenly stopped. Almost at the same time, a curtain of light appeared around them. Sect Master Heng Xiao and a group of cultivators appeared and surrounded the three of them. Chapter 21:19. Wan Guang looked around but didn't seem surprised at all. Yi Guang and Xiuguang were also calm as usual. Sect Master Heng Xiao's avatar arrived. He took a step forward and said, "You have come to my upper world for no reason and even said you wanted to investigate. Forgive me for not being able to tolerate this. However, my Heng Xiao sect is not unreasonable. After all, the realm gate was opened by us. Perhaps it was an accident that you came here. If you are willing to leave now, we can avoid a fight." Wan Guang and the others had extremely high cultivations, and they didn't know what methods they had. Even if they won, they would definitely be injured. Most importantly, they wouldn't get any benefits. If they could scare them away, that would be the best result. Wan Guang didn't say anything. With a thought, the magic sword on his back flew out of its sheath. It drew a green light in the sky and illuminated the sky. Xiuguang and Yi Guang didn't waste any time either. With two clear sounds, they also drew their magic swords. Seeing this, Sect Master Heng Xiao didn't have any intention of persuading them. He retreated and said decisively, "Attack!" This time, he had mobilized almost all the sect elders here. The palace was only suppressed by a restrictive formation. He decided to concentrate the sect's power to deal with the three people in front of him first. Then he would turn around and deal with the palace. Following his order, the sky darkened. In an instant, resplendent starlight covered the sky. Brilliant lights weaved together, and dazzling flames shot out. With a wave of his sleeve, streaks of light flew by. They had been fighting against the Herculean Divine Sect for many years. Because their sect master, Taoist Divine Sun, was an enlightenment cultivator, their Fa Li was too powerful. Thus, they often had to fight against one side with many. Naturally, they had a way to deal with the enemy together. Moreover, this was inside the Heng Xiao sect. Although no external enemies could enter in the past, it didn't mean that there were no restrictive formations. There was always a teleportation formation. Although it couldn't be used to attack, it could be used to hide if there was danger. Thus, they believed they had a great advantage against outsiders like Wan Guang. Even if they only relied on exhausting their Fa Li, they could still defeat their opponents. Since there was no obstruction in the transmission of divine wills, Yi Guang and the others in the palace immediately knew what was happening outside. Qingguang said, "Should we go over to help?" Yi Guang pondered for a moment and said, "There's no need to do anything first. The realm gate here is the most crucial. There's no need to worry about it. Senior brothers should be able to deal with it." Although Zhang Yan had given them the jade talisman, if the realm gate closed again, they could be brought back by the jade talisman. However, he knew that he couldn't fight them head-on, so he didn't wait for the protective treasure to be destroyed before retreating into the formation. Wan Guang and the others also didn't pursue him. Their swords turned and rushed towards the next person. Sect Master Heng Xiao saw that something was wrong. If this continued, no matter how many people there were, it would be difficult to pose any threat to this junior. After thinking for a moment, he thought that the problem might be with the deduction method, so he immediately said, "There's no need to use the sex method. Just use the normal deduction method to calculate again." Everyone immediately obeyed. However, after trying this time, they still couldn't make any progress. This proved that it wasn't that their method was useless, but that they couldn't calculate the other party's root fruit. Everyone felt that something was wrong. This meant that they couldn't do anything to the other party, but the other party could attack them without fear. After Bing Zhang retreated from the formation, because he didn't have a protective treasure, he didn't dare to come out. He took a moment to take a closer look, then transmitted his divine will. "Sect Master, look at the layer of light on this junior's body. Perhaps this junior is relying on it." At this moment, Sect Master Heng Zhao's doppelganger had landed on the field, but his true body was still in the palace. On one hand, this was for him to recuperate, and on the other hand, if he encountered an unexpected situation, he would have extra strength to deal with it. Hearing Bing Zhang's words, he was watching from afar. He saw that Wan Guang and the others had a faint layer of light circulating around their bodies. He had never seen anything like this before. It didn't look like a treasure, nor was it a path technique. The root of the problem should be here. If he didn't get rid of this layer, it would be difficult to deal with Wan Guang and the others. However, even though he knew where the problem was, he still couldn't find a way to deal with it. Just now, in a short period of time, they had tried almost everything, but still couldn't touch the other party. He thought about it and was glad that Ling Ban and Wei had brought back the Xin He sect guarding treasure. This item might be able to solve the problem in front of them. As long as this treasure was willing to use a part of its Fa Li or spiritual soul, it could destroy almost anything it saw. When Xin Yang Taoist had this item, he wasn't afraid even if he was surrounded. Whenever he couldn't handle it, he would destroy his Dharma body to destroy the enemy's Dharma treasures. Because he was a cultivator of the enlightenment realm, even if his Dharma body was destroyed, as long as there was still Fa Li left in the sky beyond heaven, he would be able to cultivate his Dharma body back after a calamity. Therefore, it was very difficult to deal with him. Later, Heng Shao sect received news from an insider, and while he didn't have this item with him, just now, they trapped him. Just now, this item was brought to the sect yesterday. After Sect Master Heng Shao obtained it, he had only roughly refined it and couldn't use it as he wished. However, as long as he could use it, it would be fine. The key was how much he had to pay. If it wasn't enough, it would be useless, but if it was too much, he would lose his life. After thinking about it, he decided to pour more than 90% of his Fa Li into it. Although he wouldn't be able to fight after doing so, if he didn't break through this layer of fluorescence, even if he went up himself, his performance wouldn't be any better than the others. After making up his mind, he waved his sleeves and summoned a Dharma treasure that looked like a formation plate into the sky. The item slowly rotated, and he felt most of his Fa Li being sucked away. At the same time, a ray of light shot down from the sky where the two sides were fighting, shining on Dandy and the others. The fluorescence rippled slightly, and just when the people of the Heng Shao sect thought they could break through it, the ray of light slowly dissipated, and the fluorescence quickly returned to normal. Seeing this, Sect Master Heng Shao knew his chance had passed. This treasure could only be used after one's Fa Li reached a certain level, but no one in the sect could use it except for him. He thought back to the scene of the fluorescence rippling just now and fell into deep thought. After a while, he steadied his expression and said, "These three people are difficult to deal with right now, but I've already found a clue. Everyone can retreat through the realm gate. Once we find a way, I'll call the other allied alliances to deal with these 6 people." The people of the Heng Shao sect were also very straightforward. After hearing this, they all summoned their root fruits and avoided the sword light. They retreated into the protective formation and left through another realm gate. They also knew that this was only temporary. As people of the Heng Shao sect, they could return to this realm gate at any time. On the other hand, if Dandy and the others dared to chase after them, they wouldn't be able to return. Seeing the people of the Heng Shao sect retreat, Dandy and the others didn't hesitate and summoned their swords. After a while, they cut open the formation around them, but they found that everyone was gone. After discussing with each other, they scattered their avatars to search. In the end, they found that their auras had disappeared in front of a heaven and earth gate. They had undoubtedly escaped from this place. There were still many Hengshao sect junior disciples left in this realm gate. However, they only needed to make sure that no one from the same generation came to disturb them. The matter of Zhang Yan's care was undoubtedly the most important. These disciples couldn't even see them, so there was no need to pay them any attention. Dandy Guang ordered Yi Guang and the others to continue guarding the realm gate. Each of them flew towards a different realm gate. Soon, they had seen all the heaven and earth gates in this realm gate. When they passed by one of the realm gates, the jade talisman moved. When Dandy Guang saw this, he looked at the spirit rainbow in front of him and said, "This place might be the place that the ancestral master is looking for. It seems that we can't leave so easily." Chapter 21:20. Yi Guang looked at the realm gate in front of him. He wanted to investigate the situation on the other side, but when his magic power touched it, he found it was blocked by an unknown force. With a thought, he took out a jade pendant from his sleeve and touched it. With a wave of his sleeve, a ray of spiritual light passed through the realm gate. However, he found that in an instant, the connection between him and the item was severed and he could no longer summon it back. He said, "Senior brother, it seems that if we also go over, I'm afraid we won't be able to return here." Xiaoguang spoke up from the side. The Hengxiao sect left so decisively and even abandoned their junior disciples here. They will definitely come back. This battle isn't over yet. Xiaoguang said, "Since the patriarch is looking for the place on the other side, we need to continue guarding this place and wait for the patriarch's orders." He paused and said, "Although we have the patriarch's treasures, we can't be careless." Yi Guang and the others nodded. The protective treasures Zhang Yan gave them this time could avoid the enemy's divinations, but they weren't that much stronger. Otherwise, they would have been able to resist the mighty power that Patriarch Yao Han had left in the everlasting heaven sphere. If that happened, the 6 of them would have been forced out, or the treasures would have been destroyed. Therefore, they could only maintain a balance for now. If the enemy was clever enough, there was a chance they could break through it. After the 3 talked for a while, they returned to where they came from and met up with Yi Guang and the others. Right now, the gate of 2 realms was of the utmost importance. They couldn't allow the people of the Eternal Sky sect to come back and close the gate, so Wang Guang and the others didn't care about anything else. They just stood guard here and destroyed the palace and the surrounding restrictive arrays to ensure that no one would get in their way. In the Qinghuan Palace, Zhang Yan had a clear understanding of the situation in the Hengshao Mud Sky through Xiaoguang and the others. He didn't care where the Hengshao sect went or what their attitude was. He sent Xiaoguang and the others to see if they could find any clues about the fragment of the essence of creation or the place of creation. Just now, when Xiaoguang and the others stood in front of the realm gate and the jade talisman moved, he immediately sensed it. However, after trying to examine it, he discovered that the realm that seemed to contain the essence of creation was currently shrouded in a layer of fog, as if it had been intentionally sealed by someone. However, he was sure that the Whaley was very vast. Even if it only contained the essence of creation, it wouldn't be much different from a normal place of creation. Otherwise, the jade talisman wouldn't have reacted like this. Seeing this, he couldn't help but ponder. The entire Hengshao sect was made up of mortal metamorphosis cultivators, but none of them had reached the true Yang stage, and none of them had ever found the return of Zhou Yuan Jade. Either that place didn't have enough resources to give birth to this item, or Ancestor Yao Han didn't let his juniors know of its location. Even the Ancestor Yao Han, who was active in the void, didn't know of this place. Otherwise, when he was attacked by that existence, he wouldn't need to hide in the Mirror Lake. As long as he entered this place, he would become the master of this place. His eyes flashed. It seemed that this place wasn't simple. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a need to hide so deeply. If he ordered Xiaoguang to throw the jade talisman to the other side of the realm gate, he might be able to find this place in the void. However, in order to enter the Hengshao Mud Sky, the jade talisman only had an extremely weak amount of Fa Li. He probably wouldn't be able to find anything unless he added more Fa-li. However, that would only be rejected by ancestor Yao Han's Weili. He thought for a moment. Since this path couldn't be taken, then he could only occupy the Heng Shao Mud Sky and place it in Busha Heaven. Then he would try to get rid of all the strange power in this place. After that, it wouldn't be hard to find the other side through the realm gate. Getting rid of the powerful Weili in Busha Heaven was impossible before. However, with the fusion of Qi and power, he could do it. He didn't dare to say he could get rid of all of them, but the ones that existed on the surface wouldn't be hard to get rid of. He had seen many mud sky before, but this place was the most heavily guarded. Ancestor Yao Han's Weili filled every corner. If he used too much force, this mud sky might collapse before he could occupy it. Therefore, he could only do this step by step. This would take at least several years. Thus, he sent a thought to Xiuguang and the others. Then, he activated the Weili and sent it into the Heng Shao mud sky, trying to get rid of the strange power. After the group from the Heng Shao sect exited the realm gate, they stopped at a lower sect. Sect Master Heng Shao sat alone in the secret room, recalling the scene of the battle just now. Even though he had used the Divine Hermit sect's treasure, he still hadn't been able to break through the layer of light around Wang Guang and the others. However, he could clearly see that the barrier had rippled under the light of the treasure. This meant that the treasure was indeed useful, but the amount of Fa-li he had used wasn't enough. This couldn't be done in the short term unless he was willing to pay more. Also, once he entered the Enlightenment realm, he could be like Taoist Xinyang and have nothing to fear. This decision wasn't easy to make. He was still hoping to find the origin jade of Zhou that was recorded in the ancient records and allow his cultivation to advance a level. If he entered the state of enlightenment, then this path would undoubtedly be severed, and he would never be able to attain the great Tao again. He thought for a long time. Even though he couldn't do it himself, he could arrange for someone else to do it. Thus he called out. After a while, Taoist Bing Zhang walked in. After greeting him, he said, "Sect Master, what are your orders?" The Heng Shao Sect Master said, "I've thought about it. My previous defeat was because I didn't have enough magic power. If an Enlightenment realm cultivator could help me use this treasure, I should be able to break through that barrier." Taoist Bing Zhang said, "Who would you like to use to wield this treasure, Sect Master?" The Heng Shao Sect Master said, "How about He Tong, the Sect Master of the Red Cloud Sect?" When Taoist Bing Zhang heard this, he knew that this sect master had already thought about it. As they were currently in the territory of the Red Cloud Sect, he said, He Zhangman's cultivation is suitable. However, if we entrust the treasure to him, what if he has other intentions? The Heng Shao Sect Master said, "You can try to make him make an oath." Taoist Bing Zhang changed his mind. It would be best if he could make He Tong make an oath. After all, the Red Cloud Sect was a lower sect of the Heng Shao Sect. This matter could still be done. His gaze turned and he bowed. "Sect Master, I can try to persuade He Zhangmen." Not long after, the sect master of the Red Cloud Sect, He Tong, was summoned outside the hall. Many people from the Heng Shao Sect had come down. He didn't know that this generation was forced to escape from their own domain. He thought that they were going to attack his sect, so he was a little scared. However, he knew that he couldn't resist and could only hope that things weren't as he thought. At this moment, he saw Taoist Bing Zhang walk out and greeted him. "Taoist Bing Zhang, long time no see." Taoist Bing Zhang smiled and replied politely, "He Zhangmen, I'm sure you've always wanted to ask me why I've come to your domain." He Tong said, "I'm from the lower sect, so I don't dare to ask the higher sect's intention. However, I have some doubts in my heart." Taoist Bing Zhang then explained his purpose of coming here. Of course, he didn't say that they were chased out. He only said that a few cultivators who ascended from the lower realm refused to obey the Patriarch's orders, so they rebelled and created chaos. However, because they stole a treasure from the Patriarch, they couldn't do anything to them. Therefore, they needed He Tong's help. After he finished speaking, he took out the treasure of the Xin He sect and said, "This treasure needs someone to control it. However, the cultivators in my sect are pursuing a higher realm, so no one is willing to enter the realm of enlightenment. Therefore, this treasure is useless to me." Therefore, I would like to ask you to enter the realm of enlightenment and take control of this treasure. Of course, I'm not forcing you. If you're unwilling, that's fine. I can go to other sects to find a suitable person. He Tong weighed the pros and cons. Achieving the realm of enlightenment was nothing to him. He was lucky to be able to sever his past and future body. As long as he didn't lack spiritual opportunity in the future, he would be able to enjoy eternal life. As for going further, even the cultivators of the Heng Shao and Shin He sects couldn't do it, let alone him. If he could obtain a treasure for free, his status would be greatly different from before. The Heng Shao sect would definitely rely on him in the future. With these considerations, he said, since the higher sect thinks so highly of me, I'm willing to accept your request. After He Tong retreated, he immediately sped up his cultivation. As he had sufficient years of cultivation, it was easy for him to cross over. In less than half a year, he had achieved the enlightenment realm. Then he used another 2 years to refine the divine hermit sect's most treasured treasure. The Heng Shao sect master had been paying attention to this matter. Seeing that He Tong was ready, he didn't wait any longer. He summoned his peers from the other sects and brought them to the realm gate. He Tong looked at the heaven and earth gate in front of him. His thoughts were very complicated. Without the permission of the Heng Shao sect master, outsiders couldn't enter this place. Although he was the sect master of the lower sect, he had never been to the realm of the higher sect. At this moment, Taoist Bing Zhang walked over and said, "We'll have to rely on He Zhangmen later." He Tong hurriedly said, I don't dare. There's only one thing I need to tell you. After I refined it, I realized that after this treasure is used once, it can't be used again for a short period of time. Therefore, I'm afraid I only have one chance to use it later. Every time this sect treasure was used, it would be greatly damaged. However, it would recover on its own. Depending on the situation, there would be a gap of 1 to several years. Taoist Bing Zhang smiled and said, when the time comes, you just need to do your best. Of course, they knew about this. Back then, the Heng Shao sect had used this opportunity to trap the Xinyang Taoist. However, if they couldn't break through the fluorescent barrier in one go, it would be useless no matter how many times they used it. As they spoke, a light screen appeared at the realm gate. Taoist Bing Zhang glanced at it and said, "Fellow Taoist, follow me." He Tong responded and calmed himself down. Then he followed the people of the Heng Shao sect into the realm gate. Chapter 21-21. When the realm gate moved, the 6 of them immediately sensed it and looked over. They found that there were a total of 11 people from the Heng Shao sect. Aside from the original 8 people from the Heng Shao sect, there were 3 more people. They were probably helpers that the Heng Shao sect had found. Not only that, but a sense of danger arose in the hearts of the 6 of them. It was obvious that the cultivators of the Heng Shao sect had returned this time, and they might have the ability to threaten them. However, they didn't just rely on their protective treasures to win. Even without them, they still had a good chance of winning against the people from the Heng Shao sect with their teamwork. After Sect Master Heng Shao entered the realm, he sensed for a moment and found that there were still 6 of them. He relaxed a little. He was most afraid that the Heng Shao sect would find the people from the sect behind them. If that happened, they might not be able to win. However, at this time, he also found that the Heng Shao Lun Tian seemed a bit different than before. As for what was different, he couldn't say. Right now, he had no time to delve deeper into this matter. He turned to He Tong Yen and said, "Sect leader He, when we are engaged in battle with these people, you don't need to do anything. You just need to think of a way to destroy their protective magical treasures." He Tong cupped his hands and solemnly said, "I know what I'm doing. I will do my best and not let the high sect down." Sect Master Heng Shao looked at Zhou Yu's and said, "Can fellow Taoist enter seclusion later?" Zhou Yu sensed for a moment and shook his head. "I still can't sense the jade talisman. I need to try again." Sect Master Heng Shao said, "Then according to our previous plan, when the Heng Shao sect is unprepared, throw in our combined treasures and seal the gate. Even if we can't kill the Heng Shao sect this time, we can cut off their path of origin." In fact, he understood that with the ancestral master's jade talisman and the other party's unknown methods, his side might not be able to break through the world pass. Moreover, even if they really succeeded, the jade talisman passed down by the ancestral master might not be able to be retrieved. Therefore, in his heart, he did not want to see such a thing happen, but with the situation as such, he had no choice but to do it. The 11 of them moved through space and quickly approached the realm gate. Wan Guang and the others were sitting in a circle in front of the array door. When they saw them arrive, they all stood up. Taoist Bing Zhang mocked. I remember that the few of you only said that you were inspecting the realm gate. You should have seen it clearly in the past few years, but why haven't you retreated? Dandy Light said indifferently, since you want to reason with me, I will reason with you. Since you want to fight with me, then I will naturally return the favor with my sword. Sect Master Heng Xiao did not have the patience to argue. He transmitted his voice, it's useless to talk about this. Act according to the plan. As soon as he gave the order, everyone immediately split up. Most of them went to face the 6 people, while the rest used their magic power to push in the direction of the array door. However, just now, they felt that the scenery in front of them was distorted and shaking. This was clearly a defensive array formation. Taoist Bing Zhang took a look and said, disturb the spirit vein and think of a way to attack it. This was Heng Xiao sect's territory, so they were very clear about the distribution of the spirit vein in this area. As long as the spirit vein was cut off, the restriction would be like water without a source. Dandy Light ignored the people attacking the restriction. With a thought, there was a sound of jade shattering. His body glowed with fluorescent light. Then, the 6 of them attacked at the same time. They all attacked one person while ignoring the others. This time, their target was Taoist Hao Yi. He was already in a difficult situation when facing 3 people at once, let alone 6. After the previous battle, although he had reforged a defensive magic tool, it was still not as good as the one he had nurtured for many years. In just a breath's time, it was slashed apart. Seeing this, he hurriedly used the root fruit to dodge. However, Dandy Light and the others' magic swords slashed down one after another. There was almost no gap between them, so he had to constantly use the root fruit. For a while, he was forced to stay where he was and couldn't even escape. Normally, he could rely on attacking the enemy's defense to break out of a predicament, but Dandy Light and the others didn't fear any attacks, so there was no way to save him. Now that there was no formation behind him to protect him, he could only think of a way to retreat to the boundary gate. Heng Xiao sect master saw that the situation was critical and he couldn't help, so he hurriedly said, He Zhangmen, please use your artifact to break the protection on them. Just now, seeing the conversation between the 2 sides, He Tong knew that this wasn't an internal conflict like Taoist Bing Zhang had said. Instead, the Heng Xiao sect was being invaded by outsiders and was driven out of their own domain. He felt that something was wrong, but since he had already signed the contract, it was too late for regrets. He sighed and thought to himself, I can only hope that the Heng Xiao sect can win this time. After he sacrificed his avatar, his first tribulation avatar would still appear in the same place. If the Heng Xiao sect was defeated, he would undoubtedly be surrounded and attacked. Of course, he could choose to immediately use his avatar to help, but he didn't want to participate in this battle. This was also tacitly agreed to by the Heng Xiao sect. With a single thought, he retreated until he reached a safe place behind him. He then sacrificed his artifact to the sky. A moment later, his figure gradually faded into nothingness. He had sacrificed his entire avatar. At the same time, the artifact swayed and a ray of spiritual light descended from the sky. When Dandy Light and the others were illuminated by this light, the fluorescent light on their bodies began to ripple like waves. This situation was even more intense than before. Dandy Light and the others ignored this and continued to attack Taoist Hao Yi. Although the layer of fluorescent light was on the verge of breaking, there seemed to be something lacking. It didn't dissipate, and after a while, the spiritual light began to slowly fade. Heng Xiao sect master had been staring at the spiritual light since it descended, but when he saw this scene, his expression changed greatly. It was clear that the artifact wasn't working. In truth, if it were 3 years ago, He Tong would have been able to break through Dandy Light and the others' protective artifacts by sacrificing one of his avatars. But after 3 years, the situation had changed. During these 3 years, Zhang Yan had continuously whittled away at the Weili left behind by the Yao Han ancestor. As a result, the protective artifact could contain a lot more Weili, and its power also increased. Taoist Hao Yi couldn't bear it any longer. After continuously sacrificing the root fruit, Dandy Light and the others finally calculated the location of the root fruit. A great fear rose in his heart. Knowing that something was wrong, he hurriedly used a teleportation technique and disappeared from the spot. In the next moment, he appeared in front of a realm gate. However, there was no one chasing after him. There was no joy on his face from escaping. He expressionlessly looked in the direction of the realm gate and walked over. But after a dozen steps, his body suddenly exploded. A profound hole appeared out of thin air, swallowing the remaining qi and everything related to it in the surroundings. Hung Shao sect master's expression changed greatly. He knew that he couldn't rely on breaking through the protection. Now, he could only break through the restriction and destroy the realm gate. He transmitted, "Everyone, don't worry about these 6. Follow me and attack the realm gate." Zhou Mingse and the others were extremely shocked by Taoist Hao Yi's death. However, they knew that the sect master's strategy was the best. As long as they could destroy the realm gate, the 6 of them would be stuck here no matter how powerful they were. On the other hand, they could retreat and slowly find a way to destroy the protective treasure. As long as the barrier was gone, they believed that they would find a way to kill the 6 of them in the future. Because the spiritual qi in the earth vein was disturbed, the restriction outside the realm gate was quickly broken. However, the Hung Shao sect people soon discovered that there was still a barrier inside. It seemed to be set up by a formation plate. But at this point, they couldn't stop and could only continue to break through. Dongguang and the others still ignored this and turned to attack Taoist Bingzhang. Taoist Bingzhang was extremely vigilant. Before Taoist Hao Yi was killed, he had already secretly circulated his Fa Li. Now that he saw that Taoist Hao Yi was coming for him, he immediately circulated his Fa Li and teleported away. He had already made up his mind that if they chased after him, he would directly pass through the realm gate and leave Chaos Heaven. Even if the sect would punish him later, it was better than being killed here. Dongguang and the others didn't chase after him. Instead, they directly rushed towards the closest Shangjin with the surname Wei. The latter didn't fight with the 6 before, so his protective artifact was still intact. Thus, he managed to hold on for a while. But when the artifact shattered, he also wanted to escape. However, just now, with a single thought, it was as if he had crashed into a layer of qi net. The world seemed to have also been sealed, and he couldn't successfully teleport away. This was the divine ability that Wan Guang and the other 5 used at the same time. It could trap a person for an instant, and there was no prior warning when it was used. Just now, Taoist Bingzhang escaped too quickly and didn't even wait for their sword art to arrive before he escaped. Thus, they didn't have the time to use it. Now, they had seized this opportunity. Shangjin with the surname Wei's heart sank. He knew that the other side's attack would arrive in the next moment, so he hurriedly used the root fruit. However, under this storm-like attack, he could only rely on the root fruit to dodge. There was no way he could teleport away. The Hung Shao sect master also saw this scene, but he was powerless to stop it. The only thing he could do now was to destroy the formation plate as quickly as possible and destroy the realm gate. This would cut off Dongguang and the others' escape route. If he could succeed, the sacrifice of 1 or 2 people would be worth it. After a dozen or so breaths of time, Shangjin with the root fruit was also found by Dongguang and the others. As several sword lights slashed down, Shangjin's avatar was instantly torn to pieces. After killing another Heng Shao sect cultivator on the spot, Dongguang and the others didn't stop at all. Their sword lights all changed directions and charged towards Shangjin with the surname Ban. They didn't randomly choose their targets. Instead, they chose the weaker ones first. As for those who were obviously not cultivators from Heng Shao sect, they were left to the side and ignored. They didn't expect to kill all the Hengxiao sect cultivators in one go, but they knew that if they didn't have enough strength to maintain a deterrent, then the so-called alliance and lower sects wouldn't necessarily respect you. On the Hengxiao sect's side, under the constant urging of the Hengxiao sect master, they finally destroyed the formation plate. Seeing that there was no longer any obstruction in front of them, they immediately took out the magic tool that everyone had refined. With a wave of their sleeves, they tossed it into the realm gate. Chapter 21-22. The gate of heaven and earth was the entrance to the two worlds. It was neither in the world nor outside of it. It could be said that it was something that transcended the abilities of ordinary mortal metamorphosis cultivators. Therefore, if one wanted to destroy this place, it was useless to attack it directly. No matter what kind of Tao or divine ability was used, it would not be able to touch the realm gate. Unless a part of the world connected to it collapsed, then the realm gate would naturally cease to exist. However, this did not mean that mortal metamorphosis cultivators had no way to deal with it. After all, the realm gate was a dead object and did not have any defenses against external forces. The method that the Hengxiao sect used now was the sealing method recorded in the sect's ancient records. This method used a magic tool to block the realm gate. This way, no one could go out or enter. In other words, this could be called the heaven mending technique. After sect master Hengxiao threw out the magic tool in his hand, he did not bother to confirm the result. Instead, he shouted, "Retreat!" Once they got out of Muddy Sky, he only needed to send a clone here and he would know whether this item worked or not. The most important thing now was to protect the lives of the cultivators on his side. At this moment, a grand pillar of light descended from the sky. It was He Tong's one tribulation Dharma body that had been hiding in sky beyond heaven. Since his worldly resident Dharmakaya had been sacrificed, it was equivalent to cutting off his connection with the outside world, unless someone took the initiative to spread the news. Fortunately, the Hengxiao sect master did not want to give up on him. After all, he could still continue to control the worldly resident Dharmakaya once again. However, the light screen's momentum was too great, so Wang Guang and the others' attention was drawn to it. Sect Master Hengxiao couldn't do anything about it. He could only hope that He Tong could escape in time. He gave a few instructions and the Hengxiao sect's people split up and retreated to different realm gates. As soon as He Tong landed, he immediately created several clones and activated the root fruit at the same time. He escaped through the realm gate. After all, he was an Enlightenment realm cultivator and his FA Li was stronger than a third-level mortal metamorphosis realm cultivator. Unlike the previous two, he was forced to the spot by the sword light and successfully escaped. When Wang Guang and the others saw that they had all retreated, they put away their magic swords and returned to the realm gate to check. After seeing that artifact, they also saw through the Hengxiao sect's method of blocking the heaven and earth gate. Generally speaking, because this thing fell within the gate of two realms, attacks launched from the other world would not be able to touch it. It was the same for the other world, so it was very difficult to remove it. However, their expressions remained the same. Clearly, they did not take this matter to heart. This was because they had no intention of crossing back, nor did they expect anyone to come to their aid. Moreover, they still had to stay here for a few years. Once their ancestral master completely dispelled all the Wei Li in this chaotic sky, it would no longer matter whether this realm gate existed or not. Yi Guang smiled and said, "I've killed 2 people from the Hengxiao sect this time. Even if they come again, it will be several years later. At that time, this place will probably be occupied by the ancestors' dermic energy." Wang Guang said, "No matter what, we just have to guard this place." After the Hengxiao sect's sect master passed through the realm gate, he released a large magic boat and used it to travel to a lower sect in the chaotic sky realm. Ever since the Hengxiao sect established itself, it had been expanding everywhere. For thousands of years, it had conquered countless realms. There were also many lower sects, among which there was no lack of powerful sections. Some sects were even supported by the Hengxiao sect, such as this brilliant hero temple. However, these sects were scattered behind different realm gates. In order to gather enough people next time, The Hengshao sect had no choice but to disperse the people of the Hengshao sect and gather the cultivators of the lower sects separately. At this time, Taoist Bingzhang said, "Sect Master, have you noticed that just now when we entered the chaotic sky realm again, it seems to be a little different from before?" The Hengshao sect's sect master said in a low voice, "I also noticed that this change is extremely beneficial to those 6 people and disadvantageous to me. If not for this change, Hejiang men would have already destroyed their protection." Taoist Bingzhang reminded, "Sect Master, we don't know what method this junior is using to invade our realm. Perhaps the longer we delay, the more disadvantageous it will be for us." The Hengshao sect's sect master frowned. This undoubtedly meant that as the change deepened, the chaotic sky would become more and more advantageous to the other party. It seemed that there was not much time left for them to prepare. He glanced around, his eyes turning to He Tong and the other 2 cultivators of the lower sects who came to help. He said, "It will take some time to get to the brilliant hero temple. Fellow Taoists, please withdraw for now." After everyone bowed, they all withdrew. The Hengshao sect's sect masters sat down cross-legged. Now, not only was there a change in the chaotic sky realm, but the Hengshao sect was also facing an extremely serious problem. It was very difficult to replace the dead. Right now, all the cultivators in the Hengshao sect had severed their past and future bodies. Their strength could not be said to be weak, but there was not a single cultivator in the first or second layer of the mortal transformation realm. This was because the Hengshao sect and the Divine Hermit sect had been fighting for thousands of years. Several of the battles were very tragic, and the weaker cultivators had all died. This also meant that there would be one less person by his side if one died. Although he could continue to find cultivators from the lower realms, the consequences of Wang Guang and the others only killing the people of the Hengshao sect had already appeared. Without a strong enough deterrent, it would be difficult to make these people work hard. Although the cultivators of the lower sects could not disobey their orders because of the agreement, actively participating in battle and passively avoiding battle were 2 completely different things. At this moment he suddenly sensed that Taoist Bingzhang had returned. He said, "Fellow Taoist, is there anything else?" Taoist Bingzhang cupped his fists and said, "Headmaster, did you notice that apart from the very beginning, Zhou Isa and the other 2 have never been attacked by the 6 outsiders and have always been in the middle of the battle? If the 6 outsiders and Zhou Isa and the rest..." The Hengshao sect master raised his hand to stop him from continuing. He said, "If these 6 people were summoned by fellow Taoist Zhou, then the Yuxiao faction would have already attacked us together with those 6 people. There is no need to mention this matter in the future." Taoist Bingzhang said, "That is not what I meant. Fellow Taoist Zhou and the others would naturally not collude with outsiders. However, since no one from the Yuxiao faction died under the hands of these 6 people, it can be said that there is no enmity between them. Moreover, they actually come from the same place, so it is possible for them to reach a compromise." The Hengshao sect master's eyes flickered. As the sect master, how could he not consider this? Therefore, before he ordered everyone to split up, he specially summoned Zhou Isa, the leader of the Yuxiao faction, to his side in case the other 2 people did anything. However, he did not express his opinion and only said, "Fellow Taoist, you may leave." Taoist Bingzhang did not say anything else. He cupped his hands and left. At this moment, the Hengshao sect master had a thought and urged the avatar he had left in advance to enter the Hengshao Mutian. With just a sense, he knew that the gate of 2 realms had been sealed by the fusion arcane artifact. He could not help but feel a little relieved. This way, the sects behind the 6 people would not be able to send more people, so they still had a chance. At the same time, Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Tai were riding a spiritual boat to another lower sect encampment of the Hengshao sect. The 2 of them were silent along the way. When they were about to reach the lower sect, Zhou Yinzheng suddenly said, "Fellow Taoist, did you feel that the 6 people might not have wanted to forcibly occupy our territory in the beginning?" Although Wu Tai did not usually speak much, his mind was quite sharp. He smiled and said, "What does fellow Taoist want to say? There are no outsiders here." Zhou Yinzheng raised his head slightly and looked into the distance. He said, Speaking of which, I have no conflict with the 6 outsiders, so why must we fight to the death? This time, after sealing the gate of 2 realms, sect master should use this opportunity to try to negotiate with them instead of thinking about fighting again. If this fails, then our Hengshao sect will inevitably be in danger of being destroyed, and our lives will be in danger. The Hengshao sect was not a sect, but an alliance of cultivators of the same origin. The reason they were able to work together was because they came from the same ancestral master. Under the premise that they did not lack external resources, the benefits of working together were far greater than fighting each other. However, this did not mean that they were extremely close to each other. In fact, there were many conflicts. Just like this time, Zhou Isa and the other 2 actually wanted to hide from the sect to find Zhou Huanyuan Jade. Later, the Hengshao sect master broke in and forcefully opened the gate of 2 realms. This was also a sign of distrust towards them. Wu Yutai understood what he meant and said, "Fellow Taoist, do you mean to negotiate with those people? If there was still some hope before, then they might not pay attention to us after we lost twice." Zhou Yinjing said, "How would we know if we don't try?" Wu Yutai thought for a moment, then said, "I know that fellow Taoist is still thinking about how to climb the gate of 2 realms. In reality, I don't want to give up either. The ancestral master must have left the jade talisman behind for a reason. Perhaps there is Zhou Huanyuan Jade there. However, fellow Taoist, if the sect behind these 6 people is not inferior to our Hengshao sect, then what exactly are they looking for?" Zhou Yinjing said, "What fellow Taoist is saying is that they can't find the origin jade there, so they came here to search for it?" This was very possible, and it was also an inference that made people feel despair. However, he immediately thought of another possibility. Perhaps the origin jade was originally right under our noses, but we couldn't find it. Now that these people have a definite clue, they are here to search for it? The 2 of them couldn't help but look at each other. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that this guess might be close to the truth. This was because when Wan Guang and the others arrived, their first request was to investigate the realm gate. After that, they didn't do anything. Perhaps they encountered the same predicament as them and stopped to continue searching. Wu Yutai sighed and said, "But even if this guess is correct, there is nothing we can do. Unless they told the people of Hengshao sect about this, but doing so wouldn't benefit them at all. Even if they could obtain the origin jade, it would only end up in the hands of the sect master." Zhou Yinjing pondered for a while, then said, "If we fight against those 6 people again, we may not be able to survive. Why don't we make contact with them first and test them before deciding what to do next?" Chapter 21-23. After Zhang Yan circulated his technique for another half a year, the mighty force left behind by the Yao Han ancestor was gradually dispelled. The chaotic sky was already tilting towards him. In another year or so, it would completely dissolve. At that time, he would be able to see the sealed sky clearly. At this time, Dandy Light and the others also felt their ancestors' Wei Li spreading out. They had originally relied on Zhang Yan's Fa Li to increase their strength. Now that they were enveloped by this aura, they were like fish in water. Even if the people from the Hengshao sect returned, they would still be able to easily defeat this junior without their protective arcane treasures. While waiting, the 6 of them suddenly felt an avatar enter the realm gate. These days, the cultivators from the Hengshao sect would send avatars here from time to time. Once they entered the realm, the main body would naturally know what was happening here. Even if they killed the avatar, there was no point. Thus, most of the time, unless the invaders were too unscrupulous, they would not pay attention to them. However, this time, this avatar came straight for them. In an instant, it appeared in everyone's field of vision. Dandy Light's finger moved slightly, about to use his sword to kill. However, Iguang stretched out a hand to stop him. "Junior brother, wait. It's just an avatar. It's definitely not here to fight. Let's see what he wants to do." Wu Youtai's avatar arrived in front of the 6 and bowed. "Greetings, everyone." Dandy Light and the others bowed but did not say anything. They waited for him to continue. Wu Youtai did not take it to heart and said in a deep voice, "I have come here to discuss something with everyone. Before that, I would like to ask, is everyone coming to this domain to occupy this place, or is it for something else? Yi Guang smiled. We originally had no intention of occupying this place. If your side was not so hostile, perhaps things would not have turned out this way. Wu Yutai nodded and did not say anything. No matter what the cause was, the other side was strong. They could say whatever they wanted. He did not come here today to dwell on this matter. He slowly said, in the previous 2 battles, we have already seen your side's strength. If the 3 of us withdraw now, will you not pursue this matter? Yi Guang said, the 3 of you? Wu Yutai said, I am from the same sect as Zhou Isa and Zhou Yinjing, but not the others. Xiu Guang asked curiously, aren't you all from the same sect? Wu Yutai replied, my Hengshao sect can't be considered a sect. It's just that our bloodline originates from a single ancestor. He explained the general situation of the Hengshao sect, and Wan Guang's group of 6 understood. This was a loose alliance. If they worked together, it would be beneficial, so they naturally gathered together. Now that they realized there was no benefit, they wanted to separate. Only then did Wan Guang understand the situation within the Hengshao sect. However, they were happy to see the Hengshao sect voluntarily split up. Moreover, they never intended to exterminate the Hengshao sect. If the Hengshao sect never came back, they wouldn't bother with them. Wan Guang said solemnly, I understand your intentions. From what fellow Taoist said, Sect Master Hengshao is still planning to return. When he returns, I hope you won't be there. Wu Yutai was slightly relieved after hearing his promise. He said, of course. Although this matter could be overturned at any time without a contract, he believed that the Hengshao sect's goal was only to find the Zhou Huanyuan jade. As long as they found it, they wouldn't be interested in anything else. In a certain realm, the Hengshao sect master sat on top of the clouds. He looked in the direction of the realm gate with an unusually solemn expression. A clear light flashed, and Taoist Bing Zhang came to his side. He said, Sect Master, did you summon me for something? The Hengshao sect master said solemnly, now that my avatar has gone there, I can feel the changes in the world becoming more and more intense. If we don't act now, we won't be able to preserve the realm that the ancestor left for us. Taoist Bing Zhang said, it's just that the protective talisman is hard to break. Sect Master, do you have a way? The Hengshao sect master said calmly, if He Zhang Men is willing to sacrifice all of his avatars, this matter can still be accomplished. Taoist Bing Zhang immediately understood what he meant. Previously, He Tong only sacrificed one of his avatars, so he didn't succeed. However, if He Tong was willing to sacrifice both his avatars and his avatars, the power that could be unleashed would be much stronger than before. He Tong might not be willing to do so, but it was useless. This matter wouldn't change because of his will. From the moment they handed over the Shin He sect's treasure to He Tong, they were destined to walk down this path. If they followed their wishes now, their souls could still go back and reincarnate. If they disagreed, they would be going against the upper sect. Not only would their lives be in danger, their sect might even be destroyed. The Hengshao sect master said, I'll leave this matter to you. Taoist Bing Zhang agreed, but he suddenly showed a hint of hesitation. The Hengshao sect master said, what do you want to say? Taoist Bing Zhang said, I'm thinking if things don't work out, is it possible to negotiate? The Hengshao sect master pondered for a while. Negotiating was just a means. If they could fight for an opportunity, they could just think of a way to take back the Hengshao gloomy heaven in the future. However, judging from the situation, he believed that when it truly became the territory of the 6 people, the sect behind them would definitely send more people here. He even suspected that the realm gate would no longer allow them to pass through, and they would never have the chance to reclaim this place. He didn't continue this topic, but asked, is the manpower ready? Taoist Bing Zhang was also tactful and didn't mention the negotiation again. He replied, the 2 from Brilliant Heroes sect have already agreed to travel with me. Fellow Taoist band's matter is also going smoothly. The Hengshao sect master nodded. With the oath, he wasn't afraid that these lower sect cultivators wouldn't agree. It all depended on how much effort they could put in. He then asked, Is there any news from fellow Zhou and fellow Wu? Taoist Bing Zhang said in a low voice. Apart from returning once earlier, saying that things went smoothly, there hasn't been any news. I've sent my avatars several times, but there was no result. The Heng Shao sect master's expression darkened. It had been half a year. No matter what, the matter should have been settled. But there was still no news. It seemed that Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Wu were no longer prepared to stand with the Heng Shao sect. The Heng Shao sect master thought for a while and said coldly, "Idiot." At this time, if they didn't stand closely with them and hoped for the enemy's mercy, then what was it if not idiocy? However, they looked at the problem differently from different perspectives. Now that he was the sect master, only the existence of the Heng Shao sect could protect his own interests, so he would do his best to protect it. As for Zhou Yinzheng and the others, since the broken ship that was the Heng Shao sect was about to sink, why should they cling on to it? Even if they stood with the sect, they might not survive to the end. The Heng Shao sect master suddenly thought of something and asked in a low voice, "Where is Zhou Yinsa?" Taoist Bing Zhang reacted and said, "He has been in seclusion. It seems like he hasn't appeared for a long time. I will go and take a look." The Heng Shao sect master waved his sleeve and said, "Don't worry about him. The three of them have always advanced and retreated together. They should have left by now." Taoist Bing Zhang said, "I have been keeping an eye on the realm gate. There is no movement from there, which means that Zhou Yinsa has not left this world. We can find a way to capture him." The Heng Shao sect master said in a low voice, "Let's put this matter aside for now. Taking back the Hun Tian is the most important thing right now." He didn't want to make a big deal of this matter. If the cultivators of the lower sects knew that even their own sect was not optimistic about this battle, they would be even more disheartened. After thinking for a while, he said, "You can tell the cultivators of the lower sects that I can promise that as long as we take back the Hun Tian, anyone who has severed their mortal body can enter the Hun Tian to cultivate. No matter what happens, they can hide in the Hun Tian, and I will ensure the continuation of their sections." Taoist Bing Zhang left as he was told. However, a few days later, the Heng Shao sect master brought the people he had gathered and entered the realm gate on a dermic boat, preparing to fight against Wan Guang and the others again. Zhou Yinsa sighed as he watched the dermic boat enter the realm gate. After Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Yutai reached an agreement with Wan Guang and the others, they found a way to inform him of this news. He was also not optimistic about this battle. His cultivation was not far from the Heng Shao sect masters, so it was not difficult for him to sense the changes in the Hun Tian. He guessed that there was a cultivator of a higher level interfering behind the scenes. This was not something they could resist. Although the Hun Tian was important, it was not worth risking one's life for something that was destined to fail. Thus, he did not hesitate and hid, leaving only one avatar to cultivate in seclusion. Based on the previous two battles, regardless of victory or defeat, the outcome should be determined very quickly. All he had to do was wait here. However, this wait lasted for half a month, and there was no movement at all. He was also surprised and wanted to send a clone to investigate, but he was afraid that it would cause a misunderstanding. After thinking for a moment, he decided to continue waiting. Another month later, the realm gate flashed with spiritual light and Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Yutai came out from it. When Zhou Yinsa saw this, he could vaguely guess the result of the battle. After greeting them, he asked, "How was it?" Zhou Yinzheng said, "The Heng Shao sect still lost this battle. The sect master and Bing Zhang escaped, the rest were killed." Zhou Yinsa was surprised. How could this be? According to his thoughts, the Heng Shao sect master should have forced He Tong to sacrifice his avatar. If he failed, he would have immediately retreated. It was possible that one or two of them died, but most of them should be fine. Wu Yutai shook his head. This time, the 6 of them did not use their magic treasures. They only relied on their own strength to fight the sect master and the others. That is why the battle was so tragic. Zhou Yinsa sighed. "I see." Since the 6 of them did not use their magic treasures, the Heng Shao sect master would definitely seize this opportunity at all costs. Even if he knew it was a trap, he would still step into it. However, he did not expect to be defeated in the end. This proved that their choice was correct. Zhou Yinzheng said, Now that this realm is occupied by the 6 of them, we cannot enter without their permission. However, the realm you are in may not be safe. Zhou Yinsa wanted to ask why, but after seeing the two's gaze, his heart shook. Could it be the clue of the Yuan Jade is here? Chapter 21-24. Zhou Yinsa and the others didn't give up on the search for the origin jade. It was just that they couldn't find it before. After being forced out of Muddy Heaven, they could only put this idea aside for the time being. They even thought that they would never have this kind of fate. However, he did not expect that just as this thought was gradually extinguished, a clue related to the Yuan Jade once again appeared in front of him. His mind raced for a moment before he said, regarding the matter of the primordial jade, it still depends on fate. He paused for a moment before continuing, have the 2 fellow Taoists brought back the Patriarch's jade talisman? Zhou Yinjing said, we were just about to talk to fellow Taoist about this. Wu Yutai said, after the 6 of them occupied Muddy Heaven, even if the gate of 2 realms was blocked, it would be useless. That place will be opened sooner or later, so there's no use for the jade talisman to stay there. We originally wanted to take this item, but we couldn't find the opportunity. Now, we can only ask fellow Taoists to come with us and find an excuse to take this talisman back. They always thought that the Patriarch Jade Talisman was the key to opening the treasure and obtaining the origin jade. It was just that they couldn't find any way before, but now, someone had come to point them in the right direction. They also knew that with their current strength, they couldn't compete with the 6 of them. Even so, there was still a sliver of hope in their hearts. Zhou Yinjing said in a low voice, perhaps, the jade talisman was arranged by the Patriarch. It was just that the time wasn't right before, so we couldn't see it? Zhou Yinsa naturally hoped so, but there was no evidence, so it was really hard to be sure. Those who sought Tao must not try to find a reason that was beneficial to themselves in order to obtain something. That would cause them to lose the right path and be controlled by obsession. What Zhou Yinjing said was only a sliver of a possibility. Even if it was true, the changes of events were often uncertain, so they couldn't rely on luck. He said, no matter what, let's take the jade talisman back first. Zhou Yinjing and Wu Yutai both nodded. Zhou Yinsa made some arrangements and followed Zhou Yinjing and Wu Yutai to Heng Shaohun Tian. The moment they passed through the realm gate, they felt a sense of sluggishness. This was something they had never experienced before. Once the aura settled down, one would know that one had entered the realm. He raised his eyes and looked around. Although he had not left for long and the scenery in front of him had not changed much, this place gave him a strange feeling. In the past, when he was here, it was like being at home because the Weili left by the Patriarch was compatible with their Qi dynamic. But now, not only was the Qi dynamic incompatible with them, it even faintly repelled them. The 3 quickly arrived at their original residence. After Wang Guang and the others razed this place, they didn't make any big changes. They just placed a simple protection formation around the realm gate. Zhou Mingse noticed that the magic tool used to block the realm gate was no longer there. In this situation, the gate must have been controlled by the forces behind these 6 people, so they could easily move it. The 3 of them stood under the altar. Not long after, Yiguang walked out and greeted them with a smile. Greetings, fellow Taoists. Zhou Yinjing said, today, the 3 of us are here to ask if the previous agreement is still in effect. Yiguang said straightforwardly, since you did not attack us, it means that you have kept your promise. We will also keep our promise and will not cause trouble for you in the future. Then he smiled again. Don't worry, we will not invade your realm. Even if we do, we will inform you in advance. If you want to come here in the future, you only need to send a letter in advance. If you receive permission, you can come and go as you please. Zhou Mingse and the others heard this. This condition was not bad for them, they couldn't ask for more, so they thanked him. Yiguang said, if there is nothing else, then it's settled. Zhou Mingse said, wait a moment, my friend. I have a presumptuous request. Yiguang smiled, please say it. Zhou Mingse said slowly, back then, in order to find my friend from the lower realm, we borrowed the founding master's jade talisman to open the gate of the 2 realms. From what I see, the gate of the two realms has been closed. I wonder if you will allow us to retrieve the Founding Master's Jade Talisman? After all, this is the Founding Master's item. As a disciple of the younger generation, I dare not leave it outside. If they were to make a move, they would not be able to hide it. So they might as well say it out in the open. Moreover, retrieving the Founding Master's item was also reasonable. So it's like this. Yi Guang thought for a while, then smiled and said, since it belongs to your sect, we will not take it by force. You can take it back later. Zhou Mingsa bowed and said, thank you, my friend. Yi Guang said, other than this gate of the two realms, there are no other places that you can come and go. If you want to stay longer, you can. I still have matters to attend to, so I won't keep you company. After he finished speaking, he cupped his hands and left leisurely. Zhou Mingsa thought that even if this matter was successful, it would take a few rounds, but he didn't expect the other party to agree so easily. Thinking about it again, just now, when Yi Guang was thinking, he must have already discussed it with the people in his sect. Although he didn't know the reason for the other party's hospitality, it was still a good thing. He looked at the gate of the two realms and sensed it in his heart. The last 2 times he came here, because he was in the middle of a battle, he didn't dare to put all of his attention here, so he couldn't retrieve the item in time. Now that there was no external interference, he quickly sensed the location of the Jade Talisman. After summoning it for a while, his heart moved slightly. He reached out his hand and the Jade Talisman appeared there. He looked at the gate of the two realms and saw that it was no different from before. It was obviously supported by the Weili. He sighed and carefully put the item away. Zhou Yinjing said, fellow Taoist, since you've retrieved the Jade Talisman, should we leave now? Zhou Mingsa thought about it and said while stroking his beard, there's no need to be in such a hurry. Since they allowed me to stay here for a long time, there's no harm in going up and taking a look. Zhou Yinjing and Wu Yutai didn't object. The 3 of them stayed for half a year, but they could feel that the patriarch's Weili was getting weaker and weaker. It seemed like it wouldn't take long before it completely disappeared. They were deeply aware that there might be a mighty figure behind this that was not inferior to their founding ancestor. At that time, this world would probably be enveloped by that person's power at all times. After realizing this, the 3 of them naturally felt uneasy in their hearts and did not dare to stay here any longer. They hurriedly packed up before passing through the realm gate and leaving this place. However, just as the 3 of them returned to their original world, they saw an object flying towards them. Then, it transformed into the figure of a Taoist. He bowed to them and said, fellow Taoists, you're finally back. You've made me wait for a long time. When Zhou Shuisei and the others saw this person, their expressions changed slightly. Surprisingly, this person was Taoist Bing Zhang. But then they noticed that this person was only a clone, and they couldn't help but guess that the person before them should be a clone that was left here in advance. Zhou Mingsa said, so it's fellow Taoist Bing Zhang. What are you waiting for? Taoist Bing Zhang smiled and said, the sect master wants to see you. Zhou Mingsa said in a deep voice, although the gate of the realm doesn't allow us to come and go, we can't be too unscrupulous. Besides, we're no longer part of the Hengshao sect, so there's no need for us to meet. Taoist Bing Zhang smiled and said, don't worry, the sect master is in this world. There's no need to go through the gate of the realm. Zhou Mingsa and the others were surprised when they heard this. As far as they knew, the sect master had already retreated to the other heaven realm. How did he hide from Wan Guang and the others and come here? Taoist Bing Zhang said, now that it's come to this, there's something I won't hide from you. The sect master's cultivation method is a secret technique passed down by the patriarch. The sect master you've seen in the past was only a clone of the sect master. When one clone is injured, the other clone will wake up and learn some things it didn't know before. Now that the sect master has remembered some things, he needs to discuss it with the 3 of you. I wonder if the 3 of you can give him some face? Zhou Mingsa thought for a moment and said, although we're no longer part of the Hengshao sect, we're still fellow sect members. Since the sect master has invited us, we'll go and see him. Taoist Bing Zhang said, then please follow me. As he spoke, he teleported and disappeared. Zhou Mingse and the others followed the aura he left behind and soon arrived on a floating boat. When they looked up, they saw the Hung Shao sect master standing there unharmed. The three couldn't help but narrow their eyes. If what Taoist Bing Zhang said was true, then the person in front of them was still a clone. But no matter how they looked, the person in front of them was the real one. The Heng Shao sect master looked at the three with his hands behind his back and said, "Since I've woken up, I've learned some things for no reason." He looked at the three and smiled deeply. "The jade talisman that the patriarch left for the three of you is not only to guide you to open the gate of the lower realm, but also to help you find the Zhou Huanyun jade, right?" In the Qinghuan Palace, Zhang Yan sat on the jade platform. At this moment, he had already unraveled 90% of Patriarch Yao Han's Weili in the Heng Shao Muddy Heaven. He was just a little bit away from completely making this world his. At this moment, he could clearly see behind the realm gates. There were more than 10 realm gates in the Heng Shao Muddy Heaven, and each of them led to a different world. The reason why most of them could exist for so long was because they borrowed Bu Shutian's Weili, and Patriarch Yao Han's methods played a great role in this. Only one of them was special. That place did not borrow Bu Shutian's Weili at all. This was enough to prove that there was a land of creation or a fragment of the essence of creation there. However, the gate of unsealing was located somewhere in the future. According to the normal method, only a descendant of Patriarch Yao Han could find this place to open the gate of unsealing. As a spirit refinement almighty, he naturally didn't need to do this. He was also prepared to use his own Weili to dissolve it. However, he couldn't be too hasty here. If he broke it open in one go, there might be some unexpected changes. He only needed to invade it bit by bit like before. He calculated in his heart. After about 2 or 3 years, he would be able to see the true appearance of the gate of unsealing. Chapter 21-25. When Sect Master Heng Shao mentioned the use of the jade talisman, Zhou Yusha was only slightly surprised, but he quickly calmed down. This matter had already been going on for a long time. If they could deduce that this person could do the same, it was just that this person had never paid attention to this direction before. It was likely that he only figured it out after the matter failed. He said, "Perhaps this item has such a use, but we can't be sure." Sect Master Heng Shao nodded and said, "If that's the case, can you let me have a look?" Zhou Yusha didn't hesitate much and said, "Of course." With a thought, he took out the jade talisman and sent it to the other side. This item was unique to Yu Zhao's bloodline. Without the permission of the three of them, it was useless for others to take it. As long as there wasn't any disturbance from the Weili far above him, he could summon it back at any time, so he didn't have to worry about others taking it away. After Sect Master Heng Shao received the jade talisman, he closed his eyes and carefully felt it. Then, he opened his eyes and said with bright eyes, "As expected, this item has a guiding power that can lead us to a place. I believe that the Zhou Huanyuan jade is hidden there." Zhou Yusha sighed and said, "So what if there is? There's no hope now. The 6 of them have most likely come here to look for the Yuan jade. I suspect that they've already discovered where the Yuan jade is hidden and have their eyes on it. Even if we can get the jade talisman to guide us, we still can't compete with the 6 of them." Sect Master Heng Shao smiled and said, "I naturally understand this, so I don't plan on fighting the 6 of them." Zhou Yusha looked at him strangely. If this person had the same thoughts before, then he probably wouldn't have fought to the death with Dongguang and the others. However, when he thought about it, the consciousness of the clone in front of him was completely different from the previous clone, and it could already be seen as a completely different person. Hung Xiao Sect Master said, "If the 6 of them have confirmed the location of the Yuan jade, then their next step will be to retrieve it. However, the difference is that they don't have the jade talisman to guide them, so there will be many twists and turns." At this point, he held the jade talisman in his hand and gestured, "But with this jade talisman, I can enter before them and retrieve this item." Zhou Isa was silent for a moment, then said, "Forgive me, I beg to differ." Hung Xiao Sect Master said, "Oh? Why was that?" "If the 3 of you are afraid that I will compete with you, then you don't have to worry. We are all cultivators of the same vein, so it doesn't matter whose hands the Yuan jade falls into. It's not that I have to obtain it, It's fine as long as it isn't taken by those outsiders. Zhou Isa shook his head and said, "That's not the reason." Sect Master, could it be that you didn't notice that the 6 of them have a supreme being behind them that could expel the ancestral founder Whaley, so his strength might not be below the ancestral founders? This is a battle between 2 supreme beings. If we get involved, I'm afraid we'll be crushed to pieces. Zhou Yinzheng also spoke at this time. Moreover, even if we obtain the Yuan Jade, we might not be able to take it away. If that supreme being tries to intercept it, what's the point of obtaining it? So that's what you are worried about? Hung Xiao Sect Master laughed. He looked at Zhou Isa and the others and said with a hint of deep meaning in his voice, "Fellow Taoists, you are only thinking about how powerful the supreme being behind the 6 of them is, but why haven't you considered that since the ancestral founder left this item behind, how do you know that he didn't leave behind a backup plan?" Zhou Isa heard the hidden meaning in his words and was startled. He looked at Heng Xiao Sect Master in bewilderment. Could it be? But when he thought about it again, he realized that this was just a person's own words. It was really difficult to determine whether it was true or false. However, there was indeed a glimmer of hope in his heart. He considered for a moment, then discussed it with Zhou Yinzheng and Wu Yutai before finally saying, "We have an agreement with the 6 of them, so it's inconvenient to violate it. The Jade Talisman can be lent to Sect Master, but we won't interfere in this matter." Hung Xiao Sect Master glanced at him. "What do you mean you can't violate the agreement? Isn't leaving Hung Xiao Sect a violation of the agreement? It's just that the 3 people in front of him couldn't determine who would be the winner in the end, so they didn't dare to participate in this matter. Moreover, the 3 of them were certain that even if he obtained the Yuan Jade and ascended to the upper realm, they wouldn't do anything to him. And if he lost, he could easily wash his hands clean. But all of this didn't matter. He came for the Jade Talisman. If the 3 of them were willing to give it up after obtaining it, then the result would be better than what he originally expected. He put away the Jade Talisman and said, "Very well. From now on, this matter has nothing to do with you." Zhou Isa cupped his hands and said, "Then I wish fellow Taoists success. Farewell." With that, the 3 of them disappeared in a flash of starlight. Taoist Bing Zhang hadn't spoken just now. Now that the 3 of them had left, he said, "Sect Master, these 3 are not of the same mind as me, and they are the culprits who caused my defeat. After Sect Master succeeds, you can't let them go easily." Hung Xiao Sect Master waved his hand and said, "In the end, they are of the same origin, and they entrusted the Jade Talisman to me. Let's not talk about what happened before. But since they don't recognize themselves as people of Hung Xiao Sect, after I take back Hun Tian, I won't let them enter." As Zhang Yan was unraveling Ancestor Yao Han's Whaley, he suddenly had a feeling that everything was going smoothly, but now there was an unexpected variable. He calculated in his heart. If there was no accident, this should be the Whaley left behind by Ancestor Yao Han feeling that there was an external force invading it, so it responded on its own initiative. He smiled faintly. Perhaps Patriarch Yao Han had other plans for this realm, but now that he had interfered, he had ruined the original plan. Because his true body wasn't here, this was just a simple Whaley's mischief. The difference between the two was huge, and there was almost no chance for him to fight back. Instead, he could take advantage of the situation and borrow the power of the Whaley to open the seal. Perhaps it wouldn't take as long as he originally estimated. After Hung Xiao Sect Master obtained the Jade Talisman, he entered a meditative state and only followed the guidance of the Jade Talisman. As soon as the hidden door opened, he would immediately sneak in and try to obtain the Yuan Jades that might be there. The reason he dared to do this was because his current body was only a clone. Even if it was destroyed, there would be another clone to replace it. Everything he knew now would be known by that clone. As for how many clones he had, and where the true body was, even he didn't know. After an unknown amount of time, he suddenly felt the Jade Talisman move. The feeling of guidance suddenly became stronger, and his divine will also came into contact with a huge Whaley. He was most familiar with the Patriarch's Whaley, so he didn't hesitate to follow it and sneak in. Zhang Yan turned his gaze and saw the Jade Talisman. Hung Xiao Sect Master wasn't in his observation, but the Whaley on the Jade Talisman was as eye-catching as a firefly in the night. Wherever it passed, it should be the weakest part of the seal. He didn't hesitate to increase his magic power and break through. In an instant, the Weili was broken. Zhang Yan didn't want to make too much of a commotion to avoid being detected by Patriarch Yao Han, so he didn't try to force his way in. But now that the Weili was broken, he didn't need to be polite anymore. He immediately exerted force, and the Weili that had been broken was swept clean like a tornado. Then, he turned his consciousness and entered the innermost layer of this realm. Hung Xiao Sect Master entered the Supreme Realm and immediately lost all senses. After an unknown period of time, he suddenly woke up. He saw himself standing in a temple. A Taoist sat on the star platform in front of him. He looked over and couldn't help but tremble. He immediately bowed down and said fearfully, "Disciple of the Jade Mansion sect, Yuan Chongwu, greets the Patriarch." The Taoist looked at the sky and seemed to discover something. He then pointed a finger. Hung Xiao Sect Master watched as the finger touched the space between his eyebrows. Then he felt countless things rush into his mind and divine will. He was pleasantly surprised to find that there were countless superior cultivation methods inside, including how to climb the Great Tao. He hurriedly looked at them, but before he could see them clearly, his body suddenly exploded as if it couldn't bear it. At the same time, the many clones he left outside collapsed at the same time. In the end, even his main body turned into nothingness, no longer existing. The Taoist shook his head and stretched out his hand. He said, "Since you can't inherit this fate, you shouldn't have come here." After looking at the sky again, his entire person disappeared, leaving only an empty world. When Zhang Yan's gaze landed on the Taoist, he saw everything clearly. That Taoist should be the will incarnation that Patriarch Yao Han had left here. However, the Taoist had killed himself in the end. Clearly, he didn't want Zhang Yan to see too much. Yi Futian didn't continue to pursue the matter. He looked into the world and found that there was only a piece of creation fragment that contained a lot of creation essence. It couldn't become a land of creation. He narrowed his eyes, feeling that things weren't so simple. It was just an ordinary world. Why was there a need to seal it? He pondered for a moment and thought of a possibility. Could it be that there was more than one place where it was sealed, and what he saw was only the one on the surface? Although this was only his guess, it wasn't like he couldn't verify it. He clenched his fist slightly and swung it down. His fist smashed into the world. If there was nothing strange about it, then this world would naturally collapse. However, if there was something strange about it, then it would naturally be exposed. As his Weili attacked, countless worlds shattered. Although the world attached to the creation fragment suffered some damage, it still managed to hold on. But apart from that, there was another place that didn't move. Zhang Yan's eyes flashed. This was a world shaped like a mysterious cave. Even though he could see it, he couldn't sense it at all. Sure enough, this was the place that Patriarch Yao Han wanted to hide. As for the creation fragment, it was just a distraction. With a swipe of his finger, the mysterious cave-like ground was instantly broken open. Chapter 21-26. Zhang Yan drew a line with his finger, and like a flash of lightning, a ball of light erupted from within. The sealed world was revealed. He looked over and discovered that this was indeed a land of fortune, and the world that was formed from the fragment of fortune was merely used to conceal this place. Ancestor Yao Han had probably sealed this place in order to wait for the right time to open it. However, he had never expected that someone would be able to refine the yin and yang Weili of Busha Heaven into one and use brute force to find this place. As Zhang Yan's magic power seeped in, a consciousness avatar entered this place. With a turn of his consciousness, he scanned the entire world. However, he did not find Ancestor Yao Han's consciousness avatar. Either he did not leave it behind, or he had severed himself just like just now. He secretly believed that if this person was complete, he would be a great virtue. It was a pity that he could not see him now. Otherwise, he would have been able to see some of the mysteries of the upper realm. From the jade talisman in the possession of the Yuxiao bloodline, Ancestor Yao Han left it behind to point out the direction for his descendants. With this item, they could go to Busha Heaven to find the Yuan Jade. Once they reached Truyang, they could come back here. Because this place had long been sealed away, and both the inside and the outside had been filled with his mighty power, there was no need to worry about others discovering this place. If everything went smoothly, then it was possible for him to reach the God refinement realm and become the master of this place. After Zhang Yan sorted out these connections, he no longer had any doubts. In fact, Ancestor Yao Han's arrangements could be said to be very thorough. He didn't leave behind any loopholes. In order to prevent his peers from finding this place, he even left behind the good fortune fragment to mislead them. However, he clearly could not calculate all the mysteries of heaven and did not expect Sect Master Heng Shao to find this place. Therefore, in order to prevent the original fragment from being destroyed, the remaining Wei guided Sect Master Heng Shao to this place in advance. This was obviously to pass on something to him, but in the end, it did not succeed. Perhaps because this world was sealed, there were no living beings inside. Heaven and earth had not been divided, and everything was chaotic. Naturally, there was no Zhou Huanyuan jade. However, he believed that with the abundance of essence here, as long as living beings were born, they would devour the spiritual opportunity and fight each other, stirring up karma. There was a high chance that this thing would be drawn into the world. The first thing he needed to do was to take this land of fortune into his hands. With a turn of his consciousness, his body instantly left the present world and entered the void. Because there was no external interference, it only took an instant for him to refine this land of fortune and turn it into his own. Then, his divine will spread out, and the 10,000 heavens and 10,000 worlds spread out. Countless living beings were born here. It was a pity that the Zhou Huanyuan jade and his Wei were in conflict. The more he paid attention to it, the more likely it would not appear. Therefore, he could only let it grow on its own. In the mountain gate of one of the Heng Shao sect's lower sects, Zhou Isa was reading the ancient books that he brought out from the Heng Shao globular sky. These originally belonged to the other sects, but as the sects were destroyed, he found a portion of them. However, most of them were taken by Taoist Bing Zhang. At this moment, he suddenly sensed something. He looked up and saw a flash of spiritual light in front of him. Then, a jade talisman appeared. He could not help but be surprised. He did not expect this thing to return so quickly. This meant that this sect master had either found the origin jade or failed. However, if the other party succeeded, he would undoubtedly be called over. Therefore, the possibility of failure was undoubtedly the highest. He could not help but sigh. At the same time, he secretly rejoiced. If he was with this person, he might have been dragged into this as well. In the mirror lake, Ancestor Yao Han was sitting. Suddenly, he felt a sense of emptiness in his heart. It was as if he had lost something very important. He frowned and quickly tried to calculate. However, he found that there was a layer of fog here. It looked like there were traces of the Wei of the same generation concealing it. He thought about it for a long time. Although he had many guesses, he could not confirm them, so he stopped thinking about it. However, at this moment, he felt something and quickly calculated. He smiled and said, "Interesting. I didn't think there would be such a change. There will be a good show to watch next." On Zhang Yan's side, he had just finished refining the land of creation. He felt some kind of change in the silence. Just now, that existence's aura had flashed for a moment, and it was much stronger than before. He made some calculations in his mind. If there were no accidents, one of the two avatars that had escaped outside had been seized and returned to him. That meant that there was only one avatar left in the outside world. If this one was also seized, then this avatar would regain its original aura and repeat its ability to devour everything. However, things had not reached that point yet. Even if the origin spirit had really fused, he would go forward again to stop it. On the other hand, the mirror lake would have some reaction because of this. He needed to pay more attention there. He gathered his thoughts and went back to meditating. After sitting and observing for a while, he suddenly opened his eyes and looked toward the place where Bu Shutian had appeared. The myriad heavens and realms here had experienced many things. The Yu Huan heavens had invaded, the positive and negative heavens had been destroyed, and then the three devil masters had been born. Under the stirring of karma, Another Zhou Huanyuan jade was about to appear in the world. He could feel a mysterious aura condensing in the world, so he tried to use his will to look at it. However, he felt that the power was avoiding him. If he tried to pursue it, it might cause it to retreat. He laughed and retracted his will, allowing it to develop on its own. After a long time, his eyes flickered, and he reached out and grabbed a ball of spiritual light. When the light faded, a profound stone appeared in his palm. In the past, this item would only appear if the fated person guided it. However, as an almighty spirit refinement expert, Bu Xiutian was not bound by such a restriction. After looking at it for a while, he waved his sleeve and sent it into the mountain and sea realm. A ray of spiritual light shot toward the earth abyss. In this all-heavens magical competition, the winner of the final battle of Yuanying realm cultivators was a Shaoqing sect disciple. Therefore, the Zhou Huanyuan jade was given to the Shaoqing sect. In reality, this outcome had already been foreseen when Zhang Yan gifted the Sky Origin jade to Yu Xian. That was why he said at that time that if Qin Shu didn't give it to him, then the next profound stone that appeared would be given to the Shaoqing sect. However, because Yu Xianshao already had won, he proposed the competition. This time, the winner of the Battle of Core Transformation Realm Cultivators was a Qinsong school disciple, and the winner of the Battle of Profound Light Realm and Clear Qi Realm was a disciple of the Nether Spring sect. Therefore, the three sects had already agreed that if the Origin Jade appeared, it would be given to the Nether Spring sect to deal with. The Nether Spring sect's sect master, Yuan Hongyang, was currently immersed in the underworld river, comprehending Taoism. However, when he opened his eyes, he saw a profound stone floating in front of him. He immediately knew what it was. He stood up and bowed to the sky. He wrote a letter on the spot and waved his sleeve, sending it into the outer world. Since he had obtained this item, he would go into secluded cultivation to search for the upper realm. However, if he did that, he would not be able to guard the half-realm. Although this matter had already been properly arranged when the three sects decided on the ownership of the Origin Jade, he still had to inform them before he went into secluded cultivation. In the netherworld, the 6 demon masters were sitting on a high platform. Below the platform, a disciple bowed and held a large urn above his head. He said, "The treasures that disciple gathered this time are all in here." Ji Su waved her hand and brought it in front of her. After a brief inspection, she opened her mouth and said, "There's a little more than last time." Qi Yao said in a deep voice, "You did well. You may leave." The disciple bowed to the platform again and respectfully retreated. Heng Jing took the treasures and looked at them. He sighed and said, "It's still too little. If I want to refine suitable treasures, I don't know how long I'll have to accumulate them." Qi Yao said calmly, "It's better than nothing. With the obstruction of the Tao, there's no need to hope for too much." Since the last time they discussed with the Tao Yuanzun, they had sent disciples to the Kunshi continent several times to look for suitable treasures. On the surface, this was said to build the barrier between the two realms, but in reality, it was to find enough treasures to refine Tao treasures in order to fight against the Tao in the future. However, the disciples that were sent often met with accidents. They were either attacked by the beasts of the other races or clashed with the gods of the Kunshi continent. Therefore, it was rare for them to successfully bring out the treasures. Even if they did succeed, what they obtained was barely enough to fill up the barrier between the two realms. There was very little left over. The 6 of them were well aware that this was the Tao's way of restraining them. Therefore, they did not raise any objections. At least for now, they could occasionally obtain some precious treasures. If they persevered for a long time, they might be able to achieve their wish. At this moment, Qi Yao looked towards a certain direction. At the same time, Ling Yang seemed to have noticed something as well. He listened attentively for a moment and clicked his tongue. "Zhou Huanyuan Jade? Without us and the innate demons to interfere, this item has fallen into the hands of the Tao again." The rest of the demon masters sensed for a while and knew about this matter first or later. Qi Yao said, "If we can get our hands on this item and one of our disciples has cultivated to a high level, then he can use this to become the demon master. If we can get our hands on it, once we encounter any unforeseen events, We can also wake up from the anti-heaven and earth earlier and not stay silent for too long. Originally, if they died, they would be reborn in the anti-heaven and earth. They could be said to be immortal and indestructible. However, after the collision of the main and anti-heaven and earth, the spiritual substance of the two realms would mix with each other. Although this ability still existed, it was hard to know how long it would stay silent and what would be lost. With the primordial jade, this could be avoided. However, Lingyang said, "Fellow Taoist, you are wrong. If we get our hands on this item, we shouldn't keep it for ourselves. Instead, we should give it to Bai Wei and Deng Zhang." He looked at Qi Yao and the rest of the demon masters and said confidently, "Whether it's the innate demons or the heartless Taoists, as long as we have the primordial jade, then our defeated and dead comrades will have a chance to be reborn. If they accept this favor from me, not only will their forces against the Tao increase, but I can also lead the overall situation in the future." Chapter 21-27. After Ling Cho finished, the other demon masters nodded inwardly regardless of their stance, thinking that it was worth a try. On the surface, giving the primordial jade to the innate demons and heartless Taoists seemed to be sacrificing their interests, but in the long run, it was actually more beneficial to them. Qi Yao said solemnly, "Fellow Taoists' words are reasonable, but if I don't get the primordial jade, then all of this is just empty talk." Ling Cho waved his hand and said unconcernedly, "We can think of a way. Nowadays, the sects of the human Tao compete, and the winner gets the primordial jade. I think this will become the norm, and the contest for the primordial jade will follow this method in the future." He pointed towards the outside. "Then we can try to join in. That way, we can openly compete with the human Tao." Heng Jing said, "Demon Master Ling Chao's idea is not bad, but the human Tao is obstructing me in every way. Even if we want to compete, they might not agree." Ling Chuan snickered and said, "Not necessarily. It's better to fight openly than to be sneaky. Why don't we pull in the innate demons and heartless Taoists? This is beneficial to the people of Tao and they will most likely agree." Demon Master Qi Yao said, "I think this is a good idea. A loss is a loss and a win is a win. If the human Tao doesn't even dare to agree to this, then we don't have to fear them." Demon Master Qi Yao said, "It's feasible. If we can find the innate demons and heartless Taoists, then it's possible." Ling Cho looked around and said with a smile, "Leave this to me." Qi Yao couldn't help but look over. If this matter failed, his reputation would be tarnished as well. Bai Wei and Deng Zhang might be able to see through his intentions, so they might not agree to it. Regardless, it was indeed worth a try. He thought for a moment, then said solemnly, "This is a serious matter, enough to determine the rise and fall of our generation. Back then, I sent a letter stating that I would sever my ties with the two sections. Now that they've colluded again, I should pay them a visit to apologize. I will go with Demon Master Ling Cho." Ling Cho was slightly surprised, then he straightened his expression and cupped his fists at him. After the two of them came to a decision, they first went to the two clans to write a letter. After getting a reply, they went to the two clans. At this moment, Deng Zhang and Bai Wei had already opened up a new realm and were waiting there. They had thought that with the addition of 3 demon lords, the extraterrestrial demons would be at the peak of their power. They might not be able to resist exchanging blows with the human Tao, and would only come for them after suffering a loss. They did not expect that they would come for them so soon. After a while, the sky cracked and a dim light floated. 2 people dressed in Taoist robes floated over. Their auras were very obscure, as if they were not in this world. As soon as they landed on the stage, they cupped their fists and paid their respects. Deng Zhang and Bai Wei also greeted him respectfully. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Qi Yao said, "Previously, I was forced by the power of humanity and had no choice but to cut all ties with all of you. This time, I have come to apologize." Bai Wei said, "You're too kind, fellow Taoist." At that time, the situation was already hopeless. It was a wise decision for fellow Taoist to retreat. If I were in your position at that time, I would have made the same choice. Deng Zhang did not speak at the side. He knew that in order to resist the human Tao, the three clans had to join forces. They could not abandon any of them. Since they had accepted the other party here today, they had already expressed their willingness to join forces. No matter what happened in the past, there was no need to mention it again. Ling Ji waited for Qi Yao to apologize before he said, "I've come back this time because I have a matter that will benefit our three sections. That's why I've come to visit you two fellow Taoists." He didn't try to hide anything and told them the purpose of his visit. Bai Wei thought for a while and said, "Sending disciples to fight? If the human Tao agrees to this, it is possible. What does fellow Taoist Deng think?" At this moment, Deng Zhang said in a low voice, "I think this is feasible." Right now, they were the weaker party. If they could participate in the fight for the Origin Jade under relatively fair rules, it was worth a try no matter what. After all, they did not have this opportunity before. As a member of the Heartless Path, he did not care about face or status. As long as it could indeed benefit him, he would not refuse. Bai Wei also nodded. He could also see that the extraterrestrial demon wanted to be the leader, but this was not a problem. After all, they could not be left out of this matter. Moreover, in terms of strength, they could not become the leaders. Previously, they were most afraid that the extraterrestrial demon would go against the human Tao after its power increased steeply. In that case, they could not be dragged into it no matter what. Now, it seemed that the extraterrestrial demon was still clear-headed. In that case, there would not be a problem for them to join forces. However, there was one thing that he felt he had to make clear. He said seriously, "The operation of the heavenly Tao has its own destiny. The human Tao will prosper for 3 eras. Therefore, what I have done before has all failed. Now that 2 eras have passed, there is still one more to go. Before that, I hope that you will not have the idea of overthrowing the human Tao." This was the consensus between him and Deng Zhang. In this last era, he did not plan to do anything but silently accumulate strength. Ling Cho smiled and said in a relaxed tone, "Fellow Taoists, don't worry. We have no such intention." Bai Wei said, "Then the matter at hand is to discuss with the human Tao." Ling Cho suggested, "The human Tao's primordial stone is just now. Since we are discussing this matter, why don't we go now?" Bai Wei and Deng Zhang communicated briefly with each other and said, "Then fellow Taoist Deng and I will go with the two of you." After handing over the primordial stone, Zhang Yan glanced at the present world. Because of ancestor Yao Han's concealment methods, he did not dare to confirm whether there were other worlds hidden in Busha Heaven. Even if he could test it, he could not use it in Busha Heaven. It would be the same as using his own power to attack himself, and there would be no result. However, now that he had a Chaos Heaven, there would be one less hidden danger. He looked out of Busha Heaven. Not long after, another Chaos Heaven would arrive. If he was not mistaken, it would be the Netherworld Spring Sect's Chaos Heaven. Just as he was thinking about this, the formation spirit appeared at the bottom of the steps and bowed, saying, "Master, Sect Master Yuan has come to visit." Zhang Yan smiled faintly and said, "It's about time. Please." Yuan Hongyang walked into the hall and bowed, saying, "Greetings, Hall Master Zhang." Zhang Yan returned the greeting and gestured to the side, saying, "Sect Master Yuan, please take a seat." Yuan Hongyang thanked him and sat down. "Just now, I need to get the primordial jade and was about to go into seclusion. However, I suddenly sensed something that seems to be related to Nether Spring Sect, so I came to ask Hall Master Zhang about it." Zhang Yan smiled and said, "There is indeed a matter that is related to your esteemed sect. Some time ago, my Yutsong sect found the place where our ancestors ascended. Now, we can already go to the other side and search for our ancestors. Now, the ascension world of your sect will appear. When the time comes, Sect Master Yuan can go there and see our ancestors who have ascended." Yuan Hongyang sighed and said, "When my honored master ascended, I asked him if we would ever meet again. My honored master only said that it depends on fate. I thought we would never meet again. I didn't expect that we would meet again today." Saying this, he solemnly bowed to Zhang Yan and said, "I have to thank Temple Master Zhang." Zhang Yan smiled and said, "Sect Master Yuan doesn't need to thank me. I want to merge the chaos world so that it will no longer be separated from our world. I need to inform Sect Master Yuan about this. However, since you have obtained the primordial jade, you can't miss the fate. You need to go into seclusion as soon as possible. If this world appears, you can send someone to go on your behalf. Qinsong was the sect he came from, so he sent his doppelganger. Yuxiao School could be called an enemy, so he sent Dandy Light and the others. As for the Nether Spring sect, they were allies. As long as there was nothing that would affect the affairs of the 9 continents, he wouldn't interfere too much. However, if there was a land of fortune behind the chaos world and it was ownerless, he wouldn't ignore it. He would first take it. If he had the chance to meet Ancestor Lingyu, he would return it. Yuan Hongyang knew that Zhang Yan must have a reason for urging him to go into seclusion as soon as possible. So, he gave up on the idea of going on his own. After thinking for a while, he said, "If that's the case, I will let Elder Sima go on this trip." Zhang Yan nodded slightly. Sima Quan was a suitable candidate. Now that he had cultivated into the Genin demon, not to mention having countless doppelgangers, as long as the Yin Qi and spiritual opportunity were not exhausted, he could be said to be undying and indestructible. Moreover, Sima Quan had acted under his orders several times, so it would be convenient for him to explain anything. Yuan Hongyang saw that Zhang Yan had no intention of objecting, so he decided on this matter. After a few more words, he bid farewell and left. Very soon he returned to the sect. After explaining everything clearly, he closed the door and went into seclusion. Zhang Yan turned his attention back to the silence. He was sure that Zhizhuang Daoren would definitely respond. Just as he had foreseen, not long after, another spiritual talisman floated outside the chaos world. With a thought, he guided it to the front, and sure enough, it was sent by that person. It said that the existence only had one divine clone left, and the situation was already extremely critical, so he couldn't just not interfere like this. If the remaining divine clone could be lured over, captured, and suppressed, then that existence wouldn't be able to return for a very long time. With a thought, he guided it to the front. Sure enough, it was sent by that person. The words in the talisman said that there was only one doppelganger left. The situation was already very critical, so he could no longer not interfere. If he could attract and capture the remaining doppelganger and suppress it, that person would not be able to return for a very long time. If that person had any more accomplishments, he would naturally draw his sword and slay him. However, if he allowed that person to enter the land of fortune, then the slightest carelessness could lead to him seizing the land of fortune's essence. In fact, the entire land of fortune might even be taken away from him. That would instead be helping that person. Therefore, he would absolutely not allow that to happen. In the chaos world, Zhizhuang Daoren quickly put away the book. After reading it, he expressionlessly destroyed it. Just now, he was just testing the waters. Seeing that Zhang Yan's attitude did not waver, he no longer cared. The most important thing now was how to deal with the matter in front of him. He originally thought that so long as he slowly searched for the essence of creation, then even if the chances were slightly slim, there would still be hope for him to succeed in the end. How could he have imagined that the situation would change so quickly? In practically an instant, that existence had found a soul clone, and if the other soul clone were to be seized, then his plan might fail. He hesitated for a long time and finally made up his mind. Here, I can only find a way to call a few more fellow Taoists to search for the creation essence. Even if there are hidden dangers, I will be more careful. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.